Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Sister Wives with Mary Jane K. Today, I'll be giving my commentary on Season 16, Episode 8 of Sister Wives, 2 Cliques. Before I get into my commentary, there is something a viewer of mine caught, and I checked it out, and I have to say it's a great catch. It gives more evidence to indicate that these protocols Cody and his doctor supposedly created are all utter bullshit. Guess who made the rules, guys? It wasn't Kotex or his medical mastermind of a doctor. No. It was none other than Cody and Robin's nanny, who created the protocols herself. Why not just ask your hairstylist or the mail lady or the waitress at the sushi bar you like, or maybe the handyman or the tutor? Cody got the protocols straight from his employee, the nanny. Now, in this scene where Cody passes the rules list out to his wives, when Mary and Robin are bickering center stage about a silly joke that Mary made, that the rules are Robin's rules that she made, and that left Robin upset by it and they were bickering, Cody mutters under his breath, "I just asked the nanny what she does to protect our children." And that's how Cody came up with the rules. On the show, Cody said that he and his doctor came up with the rules. But Cody actually just asked the nanny what she does to protect their kids, and then he made a list. It's slow when he says it, and Mary and Robin are talking over it, but if you put it in slow-mo or you wear headphones or there's not a lot of street noise, you can really clearly hear it being said. He says, "I just asked our nanny what she does to protect our children." And from that, he made the list. So Cody went to the nanny. He asked what she does to protect their kids, and she told them what she does, and Cody made a list of rules from the nanny. Cody must have yet again lied, misleading viewers, and his wife, Janelle, and other wives have mentioned that the rules were from his doctor, and Cody himself said that his doctor came up with the protocols, when lazy Cody just asked the nanny what precautions she takes, and he listed those for his wives to follow. Is the nanny more knowledgeable in science, medicine, virology, pandemics, or epidemiology? Does she have any type of medical anything to her name? Does the nanny have more knowledge than the Center for Disease Control or the World Health Organization? Cody lied on camera. He said he and his doctor came up with these rules. And I thought that was sketch myself, that his so-called doctor would know that much more than the CDC, when that doctor doesn't have their data and research. And Cody badgered his wives and his kids all season long for being irresponsible and lax and lazy when it comes to the pandemic, when they all followed the CDC guidelines. But Cody and Robin were following a list of rules the nanny came up with all along. The nanny, not his doctor. The nanny who got COVID and was at Robin's a few days before she got a positive test result. And that's how COVID spread through the family, not through the wives and the kids who followed the CDC guidelines. If Cody was all about protection, how the fuck would he assume the nanny knows better than the CDC? That's insane. Cody is so gullible and so stupid and pathetic to trust a nanny who is not even a medical doctor. She's not even a nurse, to my knowledge. He told viewers he came up with these rules with his doctor. And here he says he asked the nanny what she does to protect their kids, and so he made a list of what she said. The trash guy comes tomorrow. I better wake up early so I can catch him to ask some advice on what I should do to protect myself from monkeypox. Maybe I'll ask my lawn guy too, just to make sure I play it safe and cover all my bases. So not even Cody's doctor made these protocols. I don't blame the poor nanny. She probably had to keep her job during the pandemic, and she probably saw how paranoid Cody and Robin are. So she knew she needed to show them she was risk-free or low risk, that she was safe to keep her job, I'm sure. So she said she will be careful, and she made a list of extra stuff that she supposedly does, probably to assuage Cody and Robin so that she could keep her job and work. And Cody decided to run with it, and he lied, and he told viewers his doctor made the list with him. So Cody wanted the family to follow rules a nanny came up with over the CDC guidelines. And he shamed his wives and kids over and over and over for how irresponsible they are, how they could get others sick with their lax, irresponsible behavior when they followed the CDC guidelines as much as possible. And Cody followed the nanny's rules. It's even more evidence to point to Cody's protocols being intentionally impossible to follow and ridiculous just so he could use them as an excuse to blame and deflect on his wives and his kids to try and justify himself living as he wanted to in monogamy with Robin, and to justify him not giving fair and equal time to all of his wives and kids. None of this was about COVID, in my opinion. And Cody talks, but again, his actions don't match his words. Cody does huge monologues saying he is the protector, he sacrifices, he has to protect the family, he has to protect the kids from dying. But Mr. Big Protector Man, the family leader supposedly, was so irresponsible as to think the nanny's rules would protect everyone better than the CDC. Get the fuck out of here. I thought it was weird when Cody said his doctor made the rules. They really wouldn't know much better than the CDC. And it's even worse to hear that Cody wants to protect his family and dictate that the family follow the nanny's rules over the Center for Disease Control, who have all the research and the scientific data and the statistics to back up what they suggest as a guideline. What kind of leader trusts the nanny's rules to protect the family over the CDC, over the people who know the stats and the science and the infection rates? They know the variants, they know how it is spread, they know how the virus mutates. Did the nanny do all the research and crunch the numbers and intake all the data when she made that list, or did the CDC? Of course, no one can look to Cody as the leader. He doesn't make smart, educated, informed decisions based on facts. He just seems to do whatever he likes. Like think the nanny has more knowledge than the CDC. He likes to lie and say the protocols that he made were with his doctor. It's less of a wonder now, looking back, to see how Cody and Robin's house, the supposed most careful house, the people that were most paranoid and fearful, the people who are most OCD about protection, that house was the point of exposure for the family through the nanny. It all makes much more sense now, and every time Cody puts down his wives and kids, every time he blames them for their irresponsibility and the harm they could cause, and each time he blames his kids and wives for why he can't be present, let's remember, his wives and kids follow the CDC guidelines, and they did not get sick until they went to the gathering at Robin's house. The most irresponsible ones of them all are actually Cody and Robin, who blindly followed the nanny's rules, saying the doctor made them, when Cody admits he asked the nanny what she does to protect his kids, and so he made a list so the family could get together. One other thing I want to touch on before we get into this episode is Cody mentioning his sacrifices, all he sacrificed for the family. But I never hear him ever mention the sacrifices his wives make to live with him, to live like this, and what they contributed to the Brown family. Last episode, Cody asked, what happened to Team Brown? And Team Brown became divided into Team Cody and Team Brown. And that happened when all of the adults in the Brown family did not share the same goal and the same priority of the family first, the family over the self. Cody and Robin prioritized each other, and the original Brown wives still prioritized the whole family. So again, Cody should ask himself that question. What happened to Team Brown? Because he is the one who shifted his priorities when Robin entered the picture. But his wives, Mary, Janelle, and Christine, were always ride or die Team Brown, in my opinion, no doubt. So I want to take a minute to talk about the sacrifices Janelle, Christine, and Mary made for their family, since it always seems to skip Cody's mind. And Cody can talk, he can vomit whatever bullshit he likes about his sacrifice, and this and that with that serial killer shit-eating grin he gets when his mask melts off and he gets his psycho Charlie Manson eyes. You all know the look, I'm sure. Cody can talk, but his words don't align with his actions. If you want to know a person, don't look at their words. Look at what they do. Look at how they act. So let's talk about the wives and their sacrifice, because Cody never does. And I think the wives sacrificed a lot to live this way. They sacrificed a lot to prioritize the family. And without Cody's wives, Cody would not have anything he does today. Yet he is so quick to call his family the obstacle to his goals in life, when they are the blessings who allowed him to have even more blessings come to him in his life. Mary, Cody's first wife, sacrificed a lot. She lived monogamously with Cody, her first true love. When they married, they had a very loving, romantic, newlywed relationship. For 3 years, they lived monogamously before Mary had to endure sister wife after sister wife coming into their monogamous style of marriage that she had grown accustomed to. Mary also legally divorced Cody so that favorite wife Robin could legally marry Cody in order for Cody to be able to legally adopt Robin's kids, meaning Cody got to be on all of their reissued birth certificates as the father, and the kids got to enjoy Cody's health insurance benefits, as the spiritual wives and the other kids did not always have that opportunity, in my opinion. Robin also got legal wife status, meaning she and her kids will have inheritance rights, and Robin will be in charge should Cody pass or in the event of a medical emergency. We know that the wives say they are all married spiritually to Cody, that the legal marriage doesn't count. Cody's other wives that don't have legal status, who are just spiritually married to him, don't have any legal status as being Cody's wives under the eyes of the law. That means they have no rights to alimony should they leave. They would have a tough time even establishing child support in some cases if Cody isn't listed on all the birth certificates. While if Robin wanted a divorce, she could receive alimony and she could receive child support more easily. None of Cody's spiritual wives would get alimony if they chose to divorce him, because legally they're not his wives, while Robin is his wife in the eyes of the law. The wives say legal status and spiritual status are no different. A legal marriage means nothing to them. They are spiritually bound. But it matters if you decide to leave your husband and you are nothing more than a girlfriend in the eyes of the law. You don't have the same rights a legal wife would. When Mary sacrificed her legal status, it crushed her. We know Cody abandoned Mary as a husband over 10 years ago. He removed intimacy, going by his typical playbook that he systematically uses to alienate his wives. I believe he does this to try to attempt to force them out, in my opinion. And he wasn't very supportive of Mary after the legal divorce. After Cody and Robin got what they wanted, suddenly they weren't so close to Mary. Robin didn't seem to be too supportive of Mary, who sacrificed something that meant the world to her for Robin. Robin was so full of empathy, in fact, the empath that she suggested that maybe Mary should burn her marriage certificate. And Mary suggested maybe then Robin should burn hers. Did Robin burn her marriage certificate, or is it framed somewhere in her house perhaps, since it's just so meaningless to her? Mary sacrificed her marriage for the family so Cody could adopt Robin's kids. And Cody and Robin treat Mary as an afterthought, if that. Let's now talk about Janelle's sacrifice. Janelle worked very hard to be the primary breadwinner of the Brown family, and Janelle wouldn't have it any other way. She is a strong, beautiful, independent woman with a great work ethic, and a lot of her worth and fulfillment comes from her career. Janelle sacrificed her paycheck to support the whole family. Without her, the family would probably be homeless, in my opinion. Janelle put food on the table. She put a roof over everyone's heads. She put clothes on everyone's back. Janelle also was the wife called upon to help other wives with their pressing financial issues should they arise. And being the smartest and most financially minded, Janelle was in charge of making ends meet, budgeting, accounting for the dollars and cents. Janelle is the most practical wife and the most business-minded, and we can see how impulsive Cody is with his money. So the family is really lucky to have Janelle. I wonder what kind of financial situation they would have been in if Cody was the one managing the budget and handling all the finances single-handedly. I doubt he could afford it. Let's look at some of Cody's impulsive choices. He has a 2-door convertible for a family of 20 plus. So that luxury car was just for Cody and his ego and his midlife crisis. And he also owns a motorcycle too. And God knows what other toys he has. So without Janelle, I don't think there is any way in the world the family would have made it. Next up is Christine. Christine is the heart of the Brown family. She was, and I think she still is for Janelle and her kids. Christine single-handedly raised her kids and Janelle's kids as Janelle worked a full-time job. She also did the homeschooling and the chores and the cooking and the shopping while raising a house full of kids. When she was overwhelmed, when she asked Cody for help, he told Christine she signed up for this and there was no help to give. All the Brown kids who are now adults have grown to be intelligent, emotionally intelligent, responsible, mature, independent, self-reliant, self-sufficient, well-adjusted kids who take accountability, who are very self-aware, who are able to communicate. And without such a nurturing, stable environment that Mary, Janelle, and Christine provided, with such care and nurturing, the kids would never have turned out so beautifully. So I just want to really highlight the sacrifices Cody's wives have made that he claims he sacrificed so much for without noticing their sacrifice. Why is it that his quote-unquote sacrifice is bandied around to make him seem like a martyr or a victim of the lifestyle so readily, but he never has a word of gratitude and appreciation for the wives who sacrificed their needs and their individual wants and their individual marriage relationships in order to prioritize the family and put the family first? Instead, Cody says his family is an obstacle to his goals in life as he props up Robin, the favorite wife, who was a liability to the group from day one, in my opinion. She came in with the priority of herself, her marriage, and her husband. When one member of the group prioritizes themselves, there is no more team. Cody asks what happened to Team Brown so resentfully last episode. What happened is the team was no longer a team. When one member prioritizes Cody and then Cody prioritizes her, and the whole team of adults are no longer Team Brown, no longer prioritizing the family over the self, that's when this fuckery happens. That's why there's no more Team Brown, because not everyone is playing for the same team. And those two are Cody and Robin. They prioritize themselves over the family. Cody seems to love his ego fed. He's a very insecure man, in my opinion, who is very incapable to lead. But he spends his time convincing himself he's a leader, he's an alpha male, when this guy is beta AF. Cody began prioritizing Robin, and Robin prioritized him. And that was all she wrote. The only people left prioritizing the family were Mary, Janelle, and Christine. So that's when it all snowballed and the dynamic was ripped to shreds. What did Robin bring to the table? What did Robin bring to the group? Robin was happy to sit on her ass and live rent-free as Cody and Janelle paid for all of her bills, her rental, and her entire existence with her kids. She didn't work when she entered the family. She became a liability. She could sleep well at night knowing Cody's other wives and kids would have less to work with financially with an already thinly stretched finite budget with very finite resources. But Robin didn't care. She slept just fine. If Robin cared about the team, she would have worked to not drain the team's resources without adding to them. She says she helped the Browns with their communication and she understands emotions. She can help. Her heart swells with love for everyone. But in my opinion, Robin knew all the information about all the issues between Cody and each wife. And she said she was helping, but she was really helping Cody manage his wives. She knew she had the upper hand, and I believe she whispers in Cody's ear, and she allows him to believe he makes the choices. And Cody props Robin up as the obedient wife, the wife who respects him, the wife who is loyal, because she blindly obeys. But Cody is whipped, and she also builds his ego while whispering in his ear. She manages to make Cody believe what she wants is what he wants. All Robin did was ruin the dynamics and create further division in the team by prioritizing herself and her marriage over the family. And she had no problem draining the family coffers. She didn't work. She did her failed My Sister Wives closet with ugly, overpriced costume jewelry when you can find nicer costume jewelry at Target or Walmart for far less. And Cody took out an exorbitant loan for her failed business. When Mary wanted the inn, Cody couldn't help her. And Mary was able to achieve it anyway, without the help of Cody or her sister wives. Janelle had a beautiful gym idea that was much smarter and more practical than My Sister Wives closet. Cody ignored it when Janelle has the intelligence, she has the work ethic, she has the business mind to create and execute anything to fruition business-wise, in my opinion. What did Robin bring into the family? She didn't bring money in. She isn't a caregiver. What did she sacrifice for this family? What did she do other than manipulate and enable Cody's bad behavior? Remember the honeymoon special? We decided to give them some of what they want. Robin didn't sacrifice shit. She got everything she wanted and more. She has Cody wrapped around her finger. She helps Cody manage what to give each wife of the crumbs that he does give. She tells him how he should act, what to communicate. And since then, with her advanced empathic ways she claims to have, she has helped Cody run the family into the ground to the point where he can so easily call his family the obstacles to his goals in life. What are Cody's goals? What are his intentions? We know what Mary sacrificed, what Janelle sacrificed to live this way, what Christine sacrificed to live this way. What did Robin sacrifice? What did she offer the family as a whole that made the family better than it was when she came in? What did Cody actually sacrifice? Because let's remember, his wives have struggled to live this way, battling their natural human instincts and emotions to live polygamy, sharing their husband. It's a constant emotional struggle. So if Cody wants to paint himself as a victim to this lifestyle, that it's too demanding on the husband, blah, blah, blah bullshit, he needs to remember he signed up for this and he needs to own his choice for picking a favorite wife and making it blatantly obvious to his wives and his kids before he whines and moans about his sacrifice. Why is it one wife got a 10-day honeymoon to San Diego while his other wives got 3 or 4-day road trips thrown together at the last minute for their honeymoons? Why is it that one wife always gets communication and intimacy and full investment from Cody, as Cody barely dips his toe in the pool with the other wives and kids? Why is it okay for Robin's adult kids to live at home and the other kids who live at home, adult kids, they're not men? Cody wants them out when one is almost done saving to buy a house and the other works and goes to school at this point. What do Robin's kids do? Maybe they do school, but I don't know. I don't see any of her adult kids able to buy their own home working hard. And I don't see Cody threatening to kick those adult kids out because karmically he has done all he can for them, like he says he has for Gabe and Garrison. This is all about ego. This is because Cody wants to be seen as an infallible God who can do no wrong, an alpha male, an adored leader everyone bends at the knee for, a hero. And when anyone doesn't treat Cody the way he wants to be perceived as a faultless leader, when they don't slave away at an ego feast, Cody sees them as his enemy, as his opponent. So when Cody asks what happened to Team Brown, he's the answer to that question. Cody is what happened to Team Brown. If Cody was able to take constructive criticism without taking it as an insult, and if Cody was able to separate his negative emotions towards his wives from his relationships and investment with his kids, maybe his older kids would still want to talk to him. If Cody was able to be as fair as possible and give equal time to each wife without playing abusive, manipulative games and trying to manipulate, if he really showed up, if he was fully invested, if he was willing to work hard without trying to demand to be the leader, maybe the family wouldn't be in shambles. Cody is so blinded by his own arrogance that he is burning it all down without seeing that he is the one making the decision to behave this way, domineering like a dictator, angrily blaming everyone for the resentment he carries, calling his family obstacles, putting them down, being emotionally abusive when he is the one making the choice to behave this way, not his wives, not his kids. The fault is on Cody, not on anyone else. And Cody is so filled with hate and resentment that he treats everyone who doesn't kiss his ass and suck with blind obedience as his enemy, as his opponent. Cody is the one who created his own separate team. Cody sees it as us versus them, not as one big family, and that is on him. Cody is his own worst enemy. All he can see is that he wants control, that he wants to be revered as the leader. But to be the leader, it's not something you demand. You can't demand reverence and respect and expect to get it. You can't force your leadership on anyone. Respect is earned. If the family trusted Cody to put the team first, to make sound, rational decisions, free from his negative emotional mindset, free from the influence of the whisperer in his ear, maybe they would gladly give Cody their respect. But how can they when Cody behaves in such an unstable way, operating with ego and resentment? His family are his obstacles in life because Cody is his own worst enemy. He created this dynamic with his behavior and his ego, not his wives or his kids. Each time Cody tries to paint himself as a victim, as being marginalized, each time he mentions the sacrifice, remember what Christine, Janelle, and Mary sacrificed. And remember, Christine, Mary, and Janelle are all about the family, and their actions and their sacrifices match up with their priority of the family, and their words and actions always match. Look at Cody, look at Robin. Do their words and actions match? When Cody fumes over not being the leader, ask yourself, does Cody possess the qualities one needs to lead? Do his words match his actions? Can he put the needs over the group over himself? Can he inconvenience himself to do what is needed for the group or what is best for the group? Can Cody own his choices? Is Cody self-aware? Can Cody separate his emotions and state of mind from the way he behaves and the choices he makes? Can Cody be trusted to decide for the best interests of the whole group while separating what he wants individually for himself? Can Cody separate his own personal emotions in a relationship with his wife from the way he invests and behaves with his children? Cody couldn't even separate his disdain for Christine from being there to support and unconditionally love his daughter during the scariest moments of her life when she was at the most risk of danger. Allowed his rocky relationship with Christine to affect his ability to show up as a father for his daughter during her surgery. It devastated Isabel. Is that what a leader would do? Is that what a decent human would do with decent morals and high ethics of his faith, like Cody always mentions? Cody said all his COVID bullshit was to protect his kids from dying, but he wasn't with the one kid in the most danger for her major surgery. Cody can't do the basics as a husband and a father, but he wants to whine and bitch and play the victim, gaslighting his wives, manipulating them, distancing himself emotionally from them, from his kids as well when they don't blindly obey. Who would give leadership and submit to a guy who can't even do the basics as a decent human being, as a decent father, and as a decent husband? Who would give leadership to a guy who prioritizes himself and his own selfish convenience, who operates based off of ego and his own insecurity, painting himself as a victim of what he signed up for? To avoid accountability, allowing his resentment and his inability to cope with what he signed up for as an excuse to be emotionally manipulative and toxic to his whole family, rather than being there as a husband and a father and taking full accountability for the choice he made to live polygamy. The adults in the family can choose what to accept or not accept as far as what they will deserve and allow in their environment. But the kids can't choose what they get. They can't choose what they are born into or what behavior they will or will not accept from their parent who is treating them in a toxic manner. As a child, you don't get to decide what you deserve or don't from a parent. And that's the worst part of this. Cody's wives are not an obstacle. His kids are not an obstacle. Cody is Cody's own worst enemy. He is his own obstacle, treating his family like they are his enemies because they won't bend the knee and blindly obey. Cody wants to dictate by force. He doesn't want to be a true leader who fosters an environment of respect where everyone has trust and faith in him, where everyone wants to give that honor to him out of love and trust and faith in his ability to lead. No one has faith in Cody. No one trusts Cody to decide things in the best interest of the group. Who would have faith in someone who would want to lead through manipulation, through trying to force people's hands by withdrawing communication and investment and connection and affection to leverage it to try and get what they want? How can his family trust Cody to lead when he plays manipulative games and he views himself as above everyone? He even said last episode he has such high standards that everyone fails to meet and that only he can meet. Could Cody buy a house in his 20s like his son? I'm just curious. Did Cody even graduate from college himself? Did Cody enlist? Did he make his own shirt company in his 20s? Cody keeps saying he's the only one who sacrifices. But did Cody only have his father there growing up a quarter of the time? Does Cody have to watch his wives fall in love and marry other men as he gets a quarter of their time? And as his wives gush about how in love they are with their second, third, or fourth husband? Does Cody have to sit there and listen to how obedient a wife's second, third, or fourth husband is? How much they value their obedience, how much easier that one husband is to him, how they feel more at home with their other husband than they do with Cody? Did Cody have to sacrifice having a legal marriage? Did Cody raise all the kids and do all the chores and the cooking? Did Cody have to deal with the constant jealousy and insecurity when he sees the wives have better relationships with their other husbands as they gush about their other husbands? Did Cody have to walk on eggshells for his wives only to get crumbs of affection and attention from them? Did Cody have to accept no sex if his wife discarded him like trash as far as intimacy because they have another husband that they have a better relationship with? And when Cody, if he wanted to discuss opening the option of intimacy up, if his wife had another husband and was using sex with him as a manipulation tool, if he went to his wife and he wanted to discuss it, and his wife told him, well, it depends how you treat my other husband, that maybe then they can talk if that behavior improves. When she sees his behavior as a brother husband improve, then maybe she'll consider intimacy. Would Cody like that? Does Cody think that's appropriate? So Cody isn't the one who was this selfless martyr sacrificing for his family. If anyone sacrificed more, it's his wives. And every time Cody mentions his sacrifice, remember, the rules were from the nanny. And he made the choice to handle COVID as he did because he wanted to punish everyone for no longer putting him on a pedestal. And his high standards and expectations only he can reach. As his family falls short, those are nothing but delusions. Cody doesn't have high standards. Is it high standards to not attend Isabel's surgery and to try and dictate how his family will live and to be jealous and resentful of your kids who already accomplished more than he did at 20? Is it high standards to use sex as a leverage to adapt a wife's behavior with a sister wife? Is it high standards to deflect and blame everyone around you rather than owning your choice and holding up your end of what you signed up for? Is it high standards to ruminate in resentment and to try to push your wives out with toxicity rather than having a backbone and telling the truth that you prefer monogamy, that you can no longer do your chores? To me, it sounds like the bar is on the ground. And the only obstacle to Cody being happy is Cody, in my opinion. He's miserable. All right, rant over. Now let's get into the episode, season 16, episode 8, 2 Cliques. The episode opens with Mary in confessional explaining how a couple of days ago she had everyone over to discuss COVID protocols. Mary says she made a joke and it didn't go over well. They play the scene of Cody handing out the rules and Mary commenting to Robin jokingly that these are the rules she made up. And Cody admits he checked with the nanny and asked her what she was doing to protect his kids. And that's how he made the list. Robin announces that she knows everybody is suspicious of her during this flashback scene, and she asks everyone to please stop. Mary tells Robin it was just a joke, and Robin dismissively says, okay. Robin tells Mary to realize that Cody has made these rules. Back to the present, Mary says that she and Robin decided they needed to dig a little deeper into that incident, even though they already chatted about it. So Mary and Robin meet, and Mary asks Robin if she is okay with her getting her germs on her folding chair, because Robin brought Mary a folding chair. And Robin says yeah, and Mary suggests Robin can always spray it down later. Mary says in confessional, since she was using one of Robin's chairs, she thought, wait, she's going to get her germs all over it. And she still hasn't done her 2-week quarantine yet. Mary and Robin sit to talk on Coyote Pass. In confessional, Robin says that the thing of it is that it's not that it's stupid. It's not that the quarantine and being careful is stupid, but she admits she is just tired of it. Mary apologizes to Robin again. She says she is sorry. She's sorry she had a wall up the other day. And Robin tells Mary it's okay, and she apologizes for misunderstanding Mary's joke. In confessional, Robin says she knows Mary's joke was actually, in a weird way, Mary showing her solidarity. It took Robin a second to digest what Mary said because she was so sensitive about it. But she knows Mary doesn't think she is sitting here dictating these rules or something like that. Robin knows Mary is making fun of other people for thinking that. Mary tells Robin she feels like nobody gets her. Mary feels like Robin, out of anybody in the family, should get her and her jokes, and she thought that she and Robin knew each other better than this. Mary says Robin knows she isn't out to get her and that she has her back. I love how Robin acts like she's so sensitive over a stupid joke, but when it came to Mary sacrificing her marriage, Robin suggested Mary should burn her marriage certificate. That was incredibly cruel and insensitive considering the sacrifice Mary made for Robin. But Robin is acting so bent out of shape over a small, harmless joke that wasn't even insulting at all. When Robin told Mary to burn her marriage certificate, at least Mary had the gumption to suggest, since it's just a meaningless paper, that Robin should burn her marriage certificate too. Robin says she would normally know Mary had her back and that it was a joke, but she tells Mary she had one of the kids call her and ask her to relax the rules about COVID. And Robin laughs as if it was ridiculous. She laughs in a very cynical way. And she said, these are not, and she's holding her hands up defensively. And she tells Mary that she wants to be careful, but these aren't her rules. No, and they aren't Cody's doctors either, like he claimed. They are the nanny's rules. So this is all utter bullshit, just so Cody can live more conveniently in monogamy with Robin, in my opinion. Robin says in confessional, you gotta blame somebody. So she says, I'm an easy target, in a very cynical manner. She isn't a victim in all of this, and she enables Cody's bad behavior as well. If the kids or wives blame her, they aren't making up a crazy narrative in their minds. They see Robin's fear and paranoia and her constant emotions up and down all the time, and they know the influence she has over Cody as well. Cody would never have come up with this bullshit if it wasn't with her hand in it to some degree. If Robin told Cody, we will follow CDC guidelines, end of story, I'm pretty sure Cody would be doing that. He got the rules from the nanny, and she probably sat with Robin and made them. We saw how paranoid Robin was at the family barbecue, how overbearing she was watching the kids play. I'd be more concerned about the prairie dog plague that's in the dirt than the COVID, to be honest. Mary tells Robin she has been following the rules, doing what she needs to do, because she wanted to get together with Robin and the kids. Robin is so grateful that she and Mary can finally have this conversation and lay it all out. Mary tells Robin she's sorry, but she thinks it's a bunch of bullshit. And Robin plays clueless. She asks Mary what she means. Mary thinks since she has been following the rules and Robin has been following the rules, that she should have been able to see her kids, or that she should have been able to be welcome at her home much sooner. And she says it's complete bullshit. And Robin agrees. And Robin says she even told Cody that. So now Robin is going to throw Cody under the bus. Mary says she thinks it's stupid. Now Robin wants to blame Cody for why Mary wasn't welcome sooner. Before, it was because the other wives and kids might get mad if they were not welcome and Mary was. We know the wives and kids would not care. Janelle and Christine and their kids all still got together responsibly during the pandemic. No one would care if Mary and Robin got together. And in fact, Christine and Janelle were shocked to learn that Mary was left alone and isolated for months and months. They assumed all this time Mary was welcome at Robin's. So that was a bullshit excuse from Robin. Now we get bullshit excuse from Robin number 2. Now she is saying it's Cody. But we know Cody told Robin months ago that Mary was safe and that Mary was welcome over. And Robin is the one who told Cody, no, we can't break the protocol, for fear that the other wives and kids would get upset. Robin is manufacturing bullshit reasons that have no leg to stand on, because we have the scene of Cody telling Robin Mary was fine, and Robin telling him they can't break the rules or people might get upset. That Mary was welcome when they weren't. So this one isn't on Cody, and it's not even on the rest of the family. This is on Robin. Robin didn't invite Mary because she didn't care if Mary was there or not. She didn't care that Mary was waiting by the phone, lonely and depressed and isolated, living alone, housebound for months and months during the pandemic, following all these extra rules, just in the hopes that she could be welcome to play with 2 elementary school aged kids, basically to be less lonely. It's sad and it's very cruel of Robin to do, and it speaks to Robin's character to do this to Mary, especially after all Mary sacrificed in getting a legal divorce so that Robin could have legal status and Cody could adopt her kids. And I'm glad Mary told Robin it's bullshit. Robin is only a friend when it suits her or when she needs something from the other person. She is never there when the other person needs things from her, or when the other person just needs a good friend to be there. And I know Mary says Robin helped her during the catfish sitch, but a few conversations doesn't mean anything. It's just words, and words that don't coincide with Robin's actions, in my opinion. Notice this season when Robin needs Mary and the family is in shambles, Robin is suddenly sitting at Mary's house, front row, braiding her hair, politicking to keep Mary in this with her, telling Mary she needs Mary to rebuild, and probably for that TLC paycheck. If it's down to just Cody and Robin and Mary, there really aren't sister wives. Cody and Mary are just acquaintances. Now, Cody made it clear. So this season, Robin is going to need Mary, and they're going to be sisters again magically. And we will hear Robin speak of how her heart just swells with love for Mary, for her sister. Her sister she allowed to be alone and isolated for 9 months, knowing all Mary wanted was to see Ari and Saul for an hour or 2 even. Mary deserves better. Mary gave up her legal marriage so Robin could have Cody adopt her kids. And so Robin could have the family she always dreamed of. If Mary didn't divorce Cody, that wouldn't be possible. A divorce wasn't Mary's dream. It hurt Mary deeply to sacrifice her legal status. But Mary did that with an open heart. And when it was done, Cody and Robin disengaged from Mary, treating her like yesterday's leftovers. Now, when a simple small gesture would make Mary feel better and less alone, Robin just couldn't sacrifice 2 hours of her time. She made Mary wait months to come over. And what's worse is she made bullshit excuses as to why Mary wasn't able to come yet. Cody was one bullshit excuse. Cody, who told Robin long ago it was fine. And next she blamed the rest of the family, the other wives and kids, Janelle and Christine, like they would be upset they weren't welcome when Mary was. When Janelle and Christine were absolutely shocked to see how dirty Robin did Mary, leaving her isolated all that time, especially after all Mary sacrificed for Robin and her kids. Robin says Cody would come to her and he would tell her, Mary is okay. You can interact with her. You can have her over. And Robin told him she agrees. And she uses poor grammar here. She says, I says I agree, instead of I said I agree. She told Cody, although she agrees, that it was on Cody to figure out how to tell everybody so it isn't a major problem if people find out that Mary was welcome. Robin didn't want to have to hide it. Janelle and Christine and the kids got together a lot during the pandemic without inviting Mary, Robin, and Cody, and they followed CDC guidelines. They didn't hide it, nor should they. You see how childish Robin is and how she makes up bullshit excuses? In confessional, Robin says, if they don't have a group conversation and she and Mary all of a sudden are able to see each other, there will be mutiny. I highly doubt it. Janelle and Christine are very mature. They're way more mature than Robin. And Janelle and Christine were shocked, by the way, that Mary wasn't welcomed over at Robin's because they assumed Mary and Robin had been interacting this whole time. There was no mutiny. There would be no mutiny. This is Robin making excuses for being a shitty sister wife as usual. She can never take accountability for herself. Robin says, that's not how you run a ship. She tells Mary she told Cody over and over again. And Cody told Robin there was no need to have a family discussion. Mary and Robin should just get together without telling the whole family. And Robin told Cody it would not work. Christine and Janelle got together throughout the whole pandemic. Their kids got together since they all followed CDC guidelines. No one had any issues with that. There wasn't a mutiny. Maybe Cody had issues, but really, who gives a fuck about him? Mary asks Robin why it wouldn't work for her to just come by without informing the family first. And Robin sighs, laughing. She knows her bullshit is burning in Mary's nostrils. Mary says if there are rules laid out, it shouldn't be a problem for her to come over. And Robin makes another excuse. She says there weren't rules laid out like they are now. In confessional, Mary says it really doesn't matter because they are all getting together anyway. She says Janelle and Christine are getting together anyway, and they aren't following Cody's rules. She says they aren't following any rules, they aren't social distancing, but that's not true. They do follow CDC guidelines to the best of their ability. And regardless, you should be responsible, but you can't let fear control how you live and control your life. Mary says it's one of those stupid situations of the people who are following the rules not getting rewarded for it. See, Mary's whole purpose in following the rules was for Cody and Robin to reward her by allowing her to see Saul and Ari. She wasn't doing Cody's protocols because she believed she needed to do it. She was doing it just in the hopes of interaction with Robin and the kids. And that's sad. She was obeying Cody, hoping he and Robin would reward her with crumbs. And they couldn't even give her that. The crumbs of a 2-hour playdate with Saul and Ari, even after she sacrificed her legal marriage so Robin could have the family of her dreams. And she followed Cody's protocols when she lived alone anyway, and there was really no reason to. It's a very one-sided friendship between Mary and Robin, in my opinion. Cody says in confessional, during COVID, there were a few times when she and Janelle got together. Their kids needed each other so badly, and they would follow the CDC guidelines prior to getting together, for sure, because no one wants to give each other COVID, Christine says. Mary tells Robin, this is stupid. It's not how a family should operate. She says she is frustrated with COVID. She is frustrated with being alone. Mary says it's just stupid. Robin looks down in shame and she says, and all she says is, I know. There is no, I'm sorry I hurt you. I am sorry I allowed you to suffer. I'm sorry I wasn't a good friend in support of you and your mental health. I'm sorry it was cruel. I was a bad friend. Forgive me. Let me try to be there from now on. There is no acknowledgement from Robin of Mary's feelings. There is no acknowledgement from Robin that she let Mary down whatsoever. From Robin, the empath. Christine says in confessional, what's crazy is she just assumed that Mary was hanging out with Robin and her kids this whole time. She says Mary is so careful and that she was so careful the whole time. She doesn't see anybody. She doesn't have anybody in her house. And Christine says when she found out that Mary wasn't interacting with Robin and the kids, it broke her heart because Christine thought Mary should have been hanging there this whole time. In confessional, Janelle says, for her, she feels like if the other person matches your risk tolerance, there shouldn't be any problems with getting together. Janelle doesn't think it has to be all or nothing. Janelle thinks you find your pod. Robin tells Mary she doesn't know how Christine and Janelle are handling this, and that's really stressing her out. Robin not once addresses Mary and Mary's feelings. She only addresses her stress, how she feels. She even deflects on blaming Cody for her bad behavior in not inviting Mary over sooner. Anything but taking her own accountability. Robin tells Mary she knows it's hard for her. She knows, as a sister wife in polygamy, that sometimes there's a devil on your shoulder. As a sister wife, you're wondering if your sister wife that your husband is with sits there and is supporting your relationship or not supporting it. And Robin says she is. She is supporting Mary and Cody's relationship, and she is supporting his relationships with his other sister wives. Janelle says in confessional, if you get too much in your head and you start making up stories about things that you imagine are happening, that's a bad neighborhood to be in a plural marriage. Christine says that little devil on your shoulder isn't exclusive to polygamy. It's not just about polygamy. She thinks that everybody has a little devil and an angel on their shoulder telling them they don't like you, they are against you, you should feel insecure, you should feel bad about this. Christine says everybody has that, and if you don't, you aren't human. It's part of this life journey. Mary, in confessional, says she isn't going to lie. There have been times when she has been jealous or she felt like she needed time that she did not feel like she was getting. Mary says obviously that was more in she and Cody's early years. Mary says obviously that she and Cody's relationship is definitely different right now, and that makes her sad. She doesn't feel jealous. She doesn't feel jealous of her sister wives at all right now. It just makes her sad that she doesn't have that relationship with Cody and that Cody is not willing to work on it with her. Mary deserves a guy who will love her and appreciate her as she is, good and bad. Mary was able to be very successful with her MLM and with the inn, and that inn was very impressive. It's a very impressive business venture. Mary attached a lot of sentimental value to that inn. She felt its history in her blood, and she got that inn. She's passionate about it. She did it on her own with very little help from her mom, and it's a success. And Cody didn't believe in Mary. Her sister wives almost mocked her. They were dismissive of the idea ever working out. But Mary made it work, and she did it on her own, and she did an amazing job. And that rocks. That's kick-ass. Mary can accomplish anything she wants. And Mary deserves a guy who can love her unconditionally and accept her as she is, who will do the hard work with her if she is also willing to do the hard work too. I think Mary is totally willing to work hard for her relationship, but Cody has zero interest. And after all these years and all Mary sacrificed, does she not deserve better from Cody? Does she not deserve someone to love and accept her as she is, unconditionally? Mary has a lot of love to give, and she can find a guy who has a lot of love to give her, who is able to love her unconditionally. And Cody isn't that guy. Robin complains to Mary that she didn't sign up for monogamy. Robin says she knows that every person in the world would sit there and question that, but she did not sign up to be in this family to only have Cody in her life. In confessional, Robin frustratedly says she is so tired of this. She has been doing it for years, from day one, sitting here begging to be a part of this family, and she is tired of being questioned. She's just tired of it. Does she not think the other wives and kids are tired of her and her manipulations and the way Cody's investment levels changed when she came into the picture? She came in and she prioritized her sister wife's husband, and her marriage to Cody over her sister wives and over the kids and over the larger family. She had different standards in the courting phase, the engagement, the honeymoon, and the marriage. And then she wonders why no one likes her when she made her priority clear. The other wives all prioritized the family over themselves and their individual marriages and their individual wants and needs. They gave up what they wanted for the group, focusing on the team instead. And Cody originally supposedly prioritized the family too, till Robin came in. And she prioritized him, and it fed his ego, and it was convenient for him, and he then switched his priorities to her. Robin enables Cody's bad behavior. She spoon feeds his ravenous ego 24/7. And she even said in the book that she prioritized her marriage over having sister wives. She openly gushed about Cody being her soulmate in the beginning. And Cody gushed about Robin too. He openly called Robin his soulmate in front of all of his wives and kids. And then he stopped giving them as much time and investment as he used to. He dipped his toe in, barely doing the bare minimum, like he was chained to these other obligations. While with Robin, from the start, he showed full investment, all in, jumping in that pool head first. And the wives saw that, and the kids saw that. And it was obvious Robin prioritized Cody from the start, and Cody prioritized her, his favorite wife. And Robin pushed to justify why she deserved different standards than the other wives got. And all of this fucked up the dynamic royally. Robin is manipulative AF, and the wives see that, and the kids see that. They tolerate Robin, but I don't think they will ever view Robin as more than a stepmom who fucked up the family by prioritizing Cody and herself. Robin doesn't look out for the family. Robin looks out for Robin. Robin tells Mary, as much as she loves Cody and it's great to have him around, it's stressing her out, and she worries about the kids that aren't seeing their dad. She is worried about the wives that aren't seeing Cody. She tells that to Mary as she wipes away a single non-existent tear from the corner of her eye. Mary tells Robin she is sorry. She says to her, it was not at all pointing the finger. Robin says it gets frustrating, and she says her mom calls her the Brown family scapegoat. Her mom is enabling Robin and helping enforce this bullshit false narrative that Robin is being bullied and treated cruelly, that the wives and the kids just don't accept her. But the wives and the kids see how Robin behaves. They see that Robin is very Robin-centric and manipulative. I don't blame the wives and kids for wanting to avoid Robin with a 10-foot pole. They see through her facade, in my opinion. That's why when Robin wanted to be closer to Janelle after Christine's departure, Janelle told Robin she has to think about it. And I'm sure Janelle is still thinking. Maybe Robin's waiting by the phone. Robin isn't the family scapegoat, and Robin can paint that picture all day long. No one is buying what she is selling. But her mother and her family members probably enable the fuck out of Robin because they can see how up and down she is, and she is always overly emotional, and so they probably want to try to calm her, so they just tell her what she wants to hear. Robin is crying in confessional. She says she called her mommy, and she chuckled and told Robin, All they do is blame you for your stuff. You are just their scapegoat. He told Robin, you are the Brown family scapegoat. There were issues in the family, I'm sure, before Robin's arrival, but the family operated much better until the priorities of all the members of the team were not the same. And it started with Robin coming into the family and prioritizing herself and Cody gravitating to prioritize Robin, as Mary, Janelle, and Christine were still prioritizing the family over the self. So a lot of the issues became magnified when those priorities shifted in all the adults. One bad apple can start poisoning the bunch. Mary tells Robin at least she is part of the Brown family. See how Mary went there to discuss her feelings, so maybe Robin would take accountability for leaving her feeling isolated while claiming to be like a sister to her? And see how Robin deflected, blaming Cody and blaming the other wives, blaming the possibility that perhaps the wives could be pissed off that they weren't welcome too. Mary knows it's bullshit. She knows that Janelle and Christine have been getting together, and she says that. And Robin knows it too. And now Robin is cornered. Mary doesn't buy Robin's excuses. Never once did Robin acknowledge what a shitty person and a friend she was to Mary, or how that made Mary feel after Mary sacrificed a lot for Robin. Instead, Robin wants to deflect and bitch and moan that the family hates her, that she is the scapegoat, so she can weasel out of actual accountability with Mary. Refocus the attention on herself. Instead of taking accountability with Mary, Robin can be the victim and focus all of Mary's attention on herself. The world is Robin-centric, so Robin brings up that her mother, who probably has enabled Robin all her life, calls her the Brown family scapegoat because Robin wants to reinforce how mean the family is, how much they bully her, how much they accuse her when she is just this sweet, sensitive victim martyring herself for this family, when everything she does is actually about her own self-interest. It's fucked up of Robin to behave this way instead of listening to Mary and taking accountability or acknowledging Mary's feelings due to her bad behavior. Instead, she wants to refocus the attention on herself, what she goes through as a victim of the Brown family, a Brown family scapegoat. And she mentions her mom to try and spin that there are other people out there who buy into her toxic bullshit narrative too. Mary tells Robin at least that she's part of the family. And she tells Robin, do you know how hard it is to feel like I'm an outsider? Robin just nods to this. Mary is trying to get Robin to understand what it feels like to be in her shoes. And Robin just nods dismissively. She is pissed that Mary didn't take the bait about her feelings in being the so-called family scapegoat. She wants Mary to switch to comforting her. In confessional, Mary says she doesn't feel like she is part of the family. Mary says it's this weird thing. She asks, am I a sister wife when I don't have a husband? Mary says she has a husband, technically, but she asks, do I? She says it's a really weird dynamic in the family. Very weird. Robin tells Mary that Cody says and does things that really make her hope. Sometimes he'll say, oh, I need to go see Mary, or oh, I need to go call Mary. Mary chuckles bitterly at that, and she tells Robin, forgive me for being cynical, but it's really nice that he says it to you, but it would be nice if he would follow through and actually call me sometime or come over and say hi. Robin says Cody does call her. She says she sees Cody calling her sometimes. Mary tells Robin that Cody told her that they can be friends and that's all they can be. Robin tells Mary that's a door opening, that Cody is leaving the door open as if it's a good thing. She tells Mary that excitedly as if it's a good sign, when Mary deserves much better than Robin and then Cody and then this whole toxic mess. Robin says that Mary is mourning the relationship she had, the relationship that she has lost, the marriage she has lost. Robin says in confessional she understands it, she validates it, it's sad, but she doesn't know that it's ever going to be what it was, but it could be something new. Mary tells Robin she will just keep hanging on. She's going to keep doing it. And Robin tells Mary, yeah, keep doing it. That's good. Robin is encouraging Mary to put up with something that she probably wouldn't put up with herself, which I find interesting. In confessional, Mary says, it's really, really easy to love Cody. It's not easy to not feel the love from him. But all she can do is to keep sharing and showing him how she feels. She says she is technically still his wife, so she will just keep saying those things. I want to mention how Robin is really manipulating Mary here to try and give her false hope and to keep her in, even though Cody is done with her. A real friend would not manipulate their sister wife, Mary, like that. In my opinion, they wouldn't give false hope where there is absolutely none at all. Robin mentions to Mary that Cody says and does things that give her hope. Cody might mention to her that maybe he should call Mary. Maybe he should go see Mary. Those are just words. Cody has yet to call. He has yet to show up. In my opinion, either Robin is incredibly naive or incredibly manipulative or both. Either Robin complains to Cody that he needs to give Mary more crumbs so she stays in, so Cody will tell Robin that he has passing thoughts of seeing or calling Mary, so Robin will put a cork in it and stop her whining. Or Cody just talks out of his ass as usual, and he mentions passing thoughts he doesn't really mean to follow through on, probably when he is pissed and resentful of his family and his obligations, and he sees Mary obedient following his protocols, so he considers the thought of rewarding her with crumbs. It's very manipulative of Robin to say these things. It's also very possible that Cody never talks about going to see Mary or calling her, and Robin is just saying it. So it's very manipulative of Robin to say these things to Mary in order to give her false hope when there is none. Notice all of the false hope comes from Robin interpreting Cody, or her managing Cody's behavior with Mary. None of the hope comes directly from Cody, of himself, from his heart and his mind and his conscience in a genuine way, and none of it goes directly to Mary. Robin wants to keep giving Mary hope to keep her in. Otherwise, with Christine piecing out and Janelle most likely soon to be out the door, there would be no Sister Wives. There would be no TLC paycheck, in my opinion, because no one watches the show because they're interested at all in Robin and Cody. We watch for Christine and Janelle, and some watch for Mary, and to see how the kids progress. If the show becomes Robin and Cody, I wouldn't watch it. People watch TV to de-stress, not to add to their aggravation. So Robin needs Mary in this. And Cody might need to keep Mary on the periphery as his spiritual wife in order to get to heaven. Even though to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, but if Cody loses one more wife, he may not get into heaven. He may not get to the highest level where he'll get his own planet to rule. And what a tragedy that would be. Remember when Robin and Cody decided together, we will give them some of what they want. On the honeymoon special, we, meaning he and Robin, have decided to give them, his other wives, some of what they want. Why the fuck is Robin deciding with Cody how he will manage his wives, what crumbs he gives them, what he tells them? It's not Robin's place to get involved in the individual marriage relationships Cody has with his wives. It's incredibly disrespectful to everyone, and it's manipulative, and it crosses a boundary for Robin to be coaching Cody. Yet Robin loves to be in the know. She wants to help Cody manage the wives. She wants to help him string them along. She wants to coach Cody, to give them the bare minimum to feel seen and heard by Cody so they will stay in. Remember when Robin directed Cody to make Mary a s'more at the family barbecue? And Mary saw Robin do it. And then she gushed and moaned about how good that s'more was, as if she was having an orgasm, to boost Cody's ego. If the behavior doesn't come directly from Cody, from his own heart and mind and conscience, and he is behaving at the direction of Robin, it's not genuine. It's not hope. It means absolutely nothing if Robin directs Cody to do these things. It's an insult to Mary's intelligence to handle her this way. Mary makes it clear that Cody doesn't follow through on what he says. Even though he may tell Robin he should call or maybe he should visit her, he doesn't align his words with his actions. He may mention it in passing to Robin, but he doesn't show up. He doesn't call. And Robin tells Mary she has seen Cody call her. Robin wants to make it look like Cody is trying. She wants Mary to feel now the door is open. Now there is hope. But if you listen to Cody and his words and you look at his actions, he says, I will never, ever be in a romantic relationship with Mary. We are just friends. That's all we are ever going to be. And if you look at his actions that match those words to a T, that indicates that's how Cody genuinely feels about this. So the door isn't open at all. But Robin needs Mary to think that, so she stays in, accepting less than she deserves. And Robin encourages that for Mary, a woman that she claims is like a sister to her. Imagine what it feels like for Mary, who knows she has almost no relationship with Cody at all, who still loves Cody, who has this hope, who can't leave, partly because she committed to this, and this is her whole identity to be a part of the family, and maybe partly because she doesn't want to lose her place in heaven with the family, or because she doesn't want Cody to lose his place in the afterlife if she believes in all this stuff. Mary stays, and Robin tries to give her hope with the intention that Mary will stay when she knows Cody, and she knows, and Mary knows, there is no hope. Robin acknowledges that Cody's past relationship with Mary is done as it was, but maybe they can build something new. Cody made it clear they won't be building anything. He doesn't want to even try to be anything beyond a polite acquaintance who tolerates Mary. Imagine how it feels to have the favorite wife, the one living in monogamy with your husband, treat you like a gullible child, feeding you bullshit that, oh, there's hope, the door is open. When Cody says otherwise, Mary knows otherwise, and Robin does too. I would tell Robin to go fly a fucking kite if she was insulting me in this way and I was Mary. I would take this as an insult. And I would tell her that her manipulations to try and keep me in, and her false hope, and her spoon feeding me and treating me with kid gloves like I'm a gullible child trying to manage me, I would tell her that this is utter bullshit and that she needs to respect me enough not to insult my intelligence. Does Mary deserve more than a guy who says maybe he will call, maybe he should come by, but he doesn't ever come? Does Mary deserve that? Does Mary deserve for her sister wife to give her false hope, to string her along and insult her intelligence when she knows Cody told her all they can ever be is friends? If I were Mary, I would find this all to be less than I deserved. It's a total shit show. And if Robin really loves Mary as a sister like she claims, she won't encourage Mary to stay in and take less than she deserves, knowing she will never get what she deserves from Cody. And she won't manufacture situations to give Mary hope, like she is the nerdy outcast teen girl in high school that the football jock feigns interest in just to torture. Mary tells Robin that conversation the other day made her so sad, like they aren't a family, like everybody is ready to go do their own thing for the holidays. Mary starts crying and she tells Robin this isn't the family that she signed up for. And sitting there in that conversation, everybody didn't seem like they wanted it. In confessional, Mary says when they were younger, when their kids were younger, they worked together. They did it together. It's been years and they really started getting comfortable just doing their own thing. Mary says there's a wedge in between them. And Robin tells Mary it was really weird. Robin felt like the idea of what she thought the family was isn't real or something. She says it was really, really weird and it was really hard. Robin asks in confessional, did I just make up this lie about the family and what our culture was and the team that we had? Did I just make it all up in my head because I wanted it so badly? I think Robin had an idea of polygamy in her head that was very idealistic, and she had a certain experience living the lifestyle as a child. And living polygamy as a child is a completely different experience than living polygamy as a wife, sharing your husband, and having to deal with the struggles that come with that, and the dynamics of the relationships between all of the adults who struggle immensely with sharing their husband, because that's not a natural thing. I also think Cody and the family put on a very good show, and they put their best foot forward when Robin was first joining the family and when she was meeting the Browns. Cody was still with it back then to a degree. He did his best to do things fair and equal back then. He still prioritized the team as well. But again, Robin came in and she prioritized Cody and her marriage and her romantic love with him over the family. And that was all she wrote. That was like a tornado coming in, fucking up the carefully woven fabric of the family, ripping it to shreds when it took years to carefully weave and fortify. Because 3 people stayed focused on the team, and when Robin entered, Robin and Cody focused on Robin and Cody and not the team. So that magnified all of the existing struggles and issues and insecurities tenfold. And it fucked up the relationships even more. The more Cody hated his obligations, the more he just wanted Robin and her kids. And Cody didn't even try to hide that Robin became his priority, that she was the favorite wife, that he was more invested in her from his heart in a genuine, deep way, because she stroked his ego and she made Cody feel like she needed him to lead her, like she depended on him, like she needed him. She knew Cody was whipped. She knew she could easily whisper in Cody's ear and influence him this way or that, provided he felt it's his idea. And she continued propping him up. Cody is responsible for his bad behavior, but Robin also had a big hand in enabling it as well, and she had a big hand in manipulating the situation to her advantage. Mary tells Robin in tears that nobody is fighting for their family right now. She thinks honestly, except for herself and Robin and the place they're in, she hates the place that the family is in, where they feel they have to fight for it. But she feels like that is where the family is at now, that they have to fight to be a family. In confessional, Robin says, these family relationships aren't important anymore. That's how it comes across to her. And it's really, really making her sad. Remember when Christine said Robin would have to be remarkable to come into the family? Because some women come in and they just want the man. They aren't interested in the family. That can clearly be disruptive and counterintuitive to the goal of the lifestyle under the faith of harmonious family love and the group over the self, and the family and harmonious family love over romantic love and the individual marriage relationships. I read this quote often of Robin's, and I'm going to read it again. She writes, "Some of my sister wives were more interested in the sisterhood than in the husband. But perhaps since I'd been married before, I knew that I needed a man whom I loved, trusted, cherished, and adored." Christine called it, and she was right. Mary is about the family, so if she wants to complain that this isn't the family she signed up for after all the sacrifices she made to live this way and all the years she put in and the legal divorce that she gave for the family that hurt her deeply, then Mary has every right to say whatever she wants. But Robin wants to complain about the family dynamics and how no one is picking the family and putting the family first. But she never picked the family to begin with as her priority. She picked Cody, the husband. She prioritized her marriage and her romantic love with Cody. And that's how this thing multiplied like a spider egg sac, breaking with all those baby spiders, almost microscopic at first, barely detectable. They crawled everywhere and everything got more magnified, crawling all over everything, out of control when Robin came in. The issues were always there, of course, but when Cody was more fair and equal and he showed the same level of investment to each wife and her kids, there were much less issues and there was a more cohesive unit with a much healthier dynamic that existed. But once Robin came in with a different priority to the group, and it was clear that Cody showed Robin a different, higher level of investment that the wives didn't even know that Cody was capable of, the trouble started, and Robin kept feeding Cody's ego, enabling his arrogance and bad behavior, till eventually those baby spiders are damn near everywhere. There's a spider infestation. Janelle is meeting with Christine at her house to check in after the last family conversation the adults had about Thanksgiving. Christine says after the adults' conversation about the holidays where Janelle walked off, Janelle called Christine. Janelle was so frustrated with the whole thing. So Christine invited Janelle over to discuss it. Christine asks Janelle how she feels about the other day. See how Christine genuinely cares about Janelle's feelings? Janelle says she finally left because she was so overwhelmed that she had no words, and she left before she said something really stupid. Janelle says she was being treated like a child, it was offensive, and she walked away because she didn't want to be treated like that. Janelle tells Christine she wondered, wow, where is this coming from? Because at first, Cody said, make your own decisions. And then Cody told them they were being irresponsible. Janelle starts laughing about it. And Christine says it pushes her buttons as she and Janelle laugh about Cody. Janelle says in confessional that one of the perks of having sister wives is if you are having a problem with your husband, sometimes your sister wives can completely relate. Janelle feels that she has camaraderie here with Christine. Christine is laughing and she says as soon as Cody said, you can be irresponsible or you can be responsible and respectful, she thought to herself, you can be judgmental or you can be an asshole. And she and Janelle both laughed together at that. Christine says in confessional that Janelle needs support. She's been isolated from Cody a lot. Christine says Janelle doesn't do the traveling like she does. She says Janelle and Cody's relationship is good. And Janelle and Cody like spending time with each other. So Christine thinks this has been devastating for Janelle. Christine tells Janelle she felt like she has felt that way so many times during the summer regarding Cody being a judgmental asshole. Because there have been so many times where she and her kids have gone to play. Christine says she needed to go see her kids. And they would go see her kids in Utah, and they would go see Maddie and Caleb in North Carolina, and they would come home and tell Cody, and he always said that it was a bad idea. But Christine told Cody she was still going to do it. Christine tells Janelle it's not enough just to have Cody come over for a few hours a week. To have them stay here just for that, it's not worth it. Christine tells Janelle Cody told her he didn't think she should go anywhere. And Christine told him she is going. In confessional, Christine says Cody will come over once every 3 days for dinner in the evening. And then he'll just get on his phone, he'll play games with Truly. But then in the morning, he will eat breakfast and leave again. And they won't see him at all till the next time he is there in the evening again. And that's the routine. So Cody basically goes there and he's checked out. We learned that Cody has been following that routine. That's the routine since they moved to Flagstaff. Janelle tells Christine that she had to go. She had to help Maddie. So she had to travel. Janelle says she had to weigh between the needs of her kids and Cody. And it's because they have a different standard of rules. In confessional, Janelle says she misses Cody. She thinks it's horrible that Cody doesn't come over or that he hasn't come over very often this summer. Janelle says if she had to choose between her kids and Cody, she is going to choose her kids. Christine mentions to Janelle that it was funny when they were all talking about Thanksgiving together, and Janelle said in front of the group that her kids want to do whatever Christine does. Janelle tells Christine her kids really did want to do what Christine does for Thanksgiving. Janelle says it came right down to them saying, we will do what Christine does. And Janelle told her kids, okay. See, Janelle and Christine know this is all utter bullshit, and they will not be dictated to. And they know Cody is the one who is making this choice, trying to shove his way down their throats. And if they don't do things Cody's way, Cody is punishing them by not giving them equal time and investment. And he also does it to their kids. And then he bitches that the wives are picking themselves and their kids over him, and that they are living their lives over choosing him, when they know that Cody is distancing himself to try and leverage his time and attention in exchange for their obedience. And they know Cody is making the choice to behave this way, to be all or nothing. He is making the choice to die on this hill. He is making this choice. And they don't enjoy Cody around that much anyways. He's checked out when he's there. He's phoning it in. Like going to their home is out of a chore or obligation he wishes he could avoid. Cody is all negativity and toxicity, and he isn't invested when he is there. He is just doing it out of obligation. He's not doing it from his heart. His wives can feel that Cody doesn't really want to be there. Plus, he is negative and moody and demanding and manipulative, and they know they deserve better and they have more fun and less stress without him, without having to walk on eggshells in his presence. And he's only there for a few hours when he does show up. And they know it's much less than they deserve. It's less than their kids deserve. They see how resentful Cody is. And they see how jealous Cody is of them prioritizing their own kids over him, as they should be doing anyways. And they know Cody can decide to demand that they follow his rules or he won't be around. And if he wants to choose to do that, they're perfectly fine with it. Cody is making this choice, not them. Cody's domineering ways and his toxic manipulations and emotional abuse won't get his wives and kids to fall in line. They know Cody is in charge of making this choice. It's Cody's decision to do this. Cody is making this choice to try and force their hand. All or nothing. It's live like he wants or he won't be around, so they're fine with that. And Cody is pissed because he didn't anticipate that they would allow him to make his choice without being bothered by it, without bending at the knee. His wives and kids are willing to compromise, but they're not going to blindly bend the knee to something so irrational. They're not going to allow Cody to dictate the way that they live. They know Cody can make his choice just like they can make their choice. But they're not going to allow Cody's choice to be all or nothing and Cody's choice to not show up to alter how they live. And they shouldn't. It's Cody's choice. If he doesn't want to be there unless they blindly obey him, Cody's the one making that choice, not them. In confessional, Robin says, when Janelle said that for her kids, what they were going to do for Thanksgiving was dependent on Christine, she says it hurt her feelings and it made her sad. Grow a freaking backbone. Robin says she can only imagine how much it bothered Cody. She asks, well, what about all of us? What about the rest of us? What about how much it bothered Isabel and how hurt and sad she was that she wasn't welcome at Robin's house where her dad was living his monogamous dream? And Isabel, as she was recovering, she wanted to spend time with her siblings and with her dad during her recovery. Why wasn't she welcome at Robin's house when the nanny was? What about how it bothered Isabel that her dad couldn't be like any other decent human being, like any other decent father? Cody couldn't come attend her surgery to support her because he didn't want to be away from Robin and the kids for so long, because he had problems with Christine. And he couldn't just suck it up like a man and just be there like a real man would for his daughter. I'm sure that really made Isabel sad, and I'm sure it really hurt her and it really bothered her. It's going to bother her all her life. So no one's that concerned with Robin's hurt feelings. Everything hurts Robin. She'll stub her toe and probably start crying. These people are way too sensitive. Even Isabel, as she was obviously feeling betrayed, feeling in so much pain, hurt that her father wouldn't be there. She was in tears. Even in her tears, she said, well, I wish my dad would prioritize me. I wish he would come, but he has other kids. So she even wasn't bitching and whining about how hurt she was while she was hurt. She was still trying to honor her dad and saying, I respect his decision. I understand he has kids. So why does Robin have the right to complain that this little thing hurts her so much? Get over it. Cody doesn't jump through hoops to be there for all of his kids and wives, especially when they need him the most, like when Isabel needed him during the scariest moment of her life, and she really wanted him there, and he refused to show up. But Cody expects everyone to jump through hoops for him when he's a mediocre husband and a piss poor father. He doesn't even do the basics for them, but he expects his wives and kids to run around and bend at the knee and jump through hoops for him. It's really no wonder that the wives and kids Cody blamed for not being able to be there for them equally during the pandemic, since they wouldn't follow his protocols while he was at Robin's house 24/7, shaming them, trying to call them lax and irresponsible over and over. Don't want to jump through hoops to go to his Thanksgiving. No one will be knocking down Robin's door to attend. Who wants to be with a condescending schmuck with an ego the size of Texas, who is always critical of others, blaming them and deflecting them and resenting them while never taking the accountability himself? Rather than taking accountability, his own family he calls an obstacle to his goals in life. It's no surprise his obstacles don't want to jump through hoops to be there with him. Who wants to walk on eggshells or be talked down to? I would want to be with people who want to be with me, who accept me as I am, who love me unconditionally and see me like an equal, who are happy to have me. It's like having to choose between going to a meal with Dumbledore or the Weasleys and Harry Potter, or going to a Thanksgiving at the Malfoy's house. Nobody wants to go hang with Draco. Cody is like Draco and the Malfoys, the negative, entitled, egotistical, condescending little man seething in resentment, stewing in his misery. Why would someone choose to spend Thanksgiving with him? No one wants to waste a minute of their life around that energy. So I think it's really wonderful that Christine and Janelle went where they felt love and positivity and acceptance. And I think it's great that they didn't go to the place where negativity slams them in the face like a car driving into a brick wall, especially on a holiday, focusing on gratitude, on thankfulness, on appreciation. On a day like that, you want to be with the ones who unconditionally love you. Christine tells Janelle she didn't know this much responsibility was on her choice, and she is sorry for then making it so Janelle and her kids won't be here as well. But she told Cody she doesn't feel guilty. She chose right, and she did what she needs to do. Christine says in confessional that Cody gave them the rules they needed to follow to get together for the holidays, and she showed the rules to Aspen and McKelty, and Aspen called her immediately. She was in tears, and she told Christine she can't follow these rules. It's impossible. She told her mom she can't come for Christmas, and she said it's absolutely ridiculous that she can't see her family. She can't believe that she can't be there. So she told Christine she needed her mom to come for Thanksgiving. Janelle tells Christine that she has been thinking their families could both hang out for Thanksgiving, and Christine is thinking that too. Janelle says that she and Christine are going to try, and they're going to be responsible. They're going to play it by ear regarding getting together as a group. Janelle thinks that she and Christine's Thanksgiving would be way more fun than Cody and Robin's. I agree. Janelle says her boys have had a very boring life, and so they're excited to have this excursion. In confessional, Janelle says she keeps trying to explain to everybody, mainly to Cody I'm guessing, that she won't leave her boys, Gabe and Garrison, alone for Thanksgiving here in Flagstaff. Because again, if Janelle remained in Flagstaff, she could be welcome at Robin's Thanksgiving. Maybe Savannah could be welcome, but Gabe and Garrison were not welcome if they did not follow Cody's protocols. So she wasn't going to leave her boys alone. Janelle asks, why would I choose to have dinner with just Robin's kids and Mary and Robin and Cody when her boys were in town and they would be alone? Christine tells Janelle she doesn't know how Robin has been able to have her kids be okay with not leaving the house. Christine says she herself would not have survived. In confessional, Robin says it hasn't been easy being so careful, and it hasn't been easy for her kids. But her kids respect their dad. Her kids would rather be able to be in the home and see Robin and Cody than to go have a social life. She says they don't want to have a social life. They don't think it's safe to. Robin is so judgmental of everyone. She acts as though she and her kids are better than the rest of the family and like they're the only ones who put the family first, and as if her family are more loyal and respectful to an asshole, that she and her kids are the responsible ones. She and her kids are the safe ones, when all the other kids and all the other wives are less than morons of the highest order, as if she and her kids are superior because they're willing to submit to control and a dictatorship. Robin is acting as though her kids were raised better than all the other kids, like her and her kids have more loyalty and respect for their father than everyone else. Blind obedience and submission is not respect and loyalty. Robin and her kids are not better than anyone just because they are allowing themselves to be dictated to and held hostage in their own house just to please the village idiot. Robin is trying to say that she and her kids have better values just because they're gullible and stupid enough to let some asshole control how they live, and they're wrapping it up in the bow of them being more respectful and them being more safe and responsible. They're more respectful, they're more loyal to Cody than all of the other kids and wives, as if the other kids weren't raised as well just because they prefer to have a social life over seeing their miserable, power-hungry dad who treats everyone who doesn't blindly obey him as an enemy and who behaves as if he isn't all with it and as if he isn't thinking rationally. I would prefer to socialize too and to have friends and school and work and a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever it is I have going on, to seeing an unstable guy who manipulates and emotionally abuses everyone, forcing them to jump through his hoops and be dictated to as to how they live, for a few measly hours of him just phoning it in so that I can walk on eggshells while he's around. Maybe it's easier for Robin's kids to make that choice to follow Cody's protocols and to be held hostage in their home by a control freak because Robin's kids aren't as mature as the rest of the Brown kids. They probably don't have stable full-time jobs. They probably don't have lots of friends. They seem very sheltered and very emotional and very sensitive. They seem less responsible and much less independent than all of the other Brown kids. They don't seem like they are at the same level as the other Brown kids or like they are where they should be at for their ages. The daughter, Aurora, was sobbing later in this episode just because some of the family preferred to travel to see their older kids in Utah. Just that made her sob. Gabe has a girlfriend. He does school. He works. He should be doing all those things. Why the fuck should he stop his life to jump through insane hoops so his dad can swing by for an hour or two to create stress and tension and make everyone walk on eggshells as he's barely engaging and barely invested, just barely phoning it in, just so Cody can feel better about himself that he did the bare minimum. Harrison is saving for a house. At this point, he works full-time and he has a shirt business and he's barely 20. I don't know many men that age who can accomplish that. And by the way, Flagstaff is very expensive. So to be able to own a home and at that age is amazing. So Cody's kids aren't irresponsible and they aren't making the wrong choice. In my opinion, Robin and her kids do not have superior morals. They aren't more Team Brown or more family oriented than Gabe or Garrison just because they have more sheltered lives and they aren't as developed yet to be as independent and mature and self-reliant as the rest of the kids in the family. Robin's kids were parented differently and they still need a lot of mothering and support. They aren't at that stage yet to do what Gabe and Garrison can do or what the rest of the adults in the family can do. But it doesn't mean just because they're doing Cody's protocols that they have higher values because they're deciding to obey Cody and stay home. And it doesn't mean that they're choosing the family over having a life. They just don't really have a choice, and they also don't have the type of independent lives that the rest of the Brown kids do at their ages. So because they don't have fully developed independent lives, all they have is their mom and dad and their family in their house, and they do it. but it doesn't mean they're superior or they're more responsible or they have a better moral code at all to accept being controlled by Cody. This wasn't a big change for them. It was probably similar to what they did before COVID, honestly. Janelle tells Christine she had to find a balance for her mental health. She says the first month, those first 2 or 3 or 4 weeks that Cody was gone, she had a really hard time. The big accomplishment for the day at that point was if she got showered or put real clothes on. Janelle was struggling. In confessional, Janelle says the first 2 or 3 weeks, everyone was trying to stay home because they were told to just stay home for 2 weeks to get on top of the curve, to flatten the curve. And Janelle says it was worse for her than postpartum depression. And she had postpartum depression after Gabe. So she knows it was worse than that for her. Janelle tells Christine to be responsible. They will just figure out how they will get together based on what the numbers look like around Thanksgiving. Christine agrees they're going to play it by ear, but she would love to say they will get together 100%, but she knows there is no way she can guarantee it. In confessional, Mary says she thinks it's typical in a plural family for the sister wives to have ups and downs. Mary has seen times with Janelle and Christine where they have been really close, and she has also seen times where it isn't that way. And the point is to get to a place where you can work together and you have each other's backs. Mary says if this is what Christine and Janelle are doing right now, she thinks it's great. Janelle tells Christine since the beginning, she has been such a big part of their lives. She tells Christine her kids are in orbit around Christine as much as they're in orbit around her. Christine lights up, and you can tell it's mutual, unconditional love. Christine is glowing. She has this huge smile across her face, and she tells Janelle it's fun, and Janelle agrees. In confessional, Janelle says there's a really special something for her with her kids about Christine. She says Christine was their primary parental figure at home for so many years while she worked. So Janelle says her kids are really attached to Christine. In confessional, Christine is beaming with love. As she says, she just loves Janelle's kids. Christine says they are just a part of her soul, and she loves spending time with all of them. She says if she and Janelle and the kids can get together anytime during the whole weekend, that would be absolutely wonderful. I don't know why, but that really moved me during this scene. I teared up watching Janelle talk about how much her kids love Christine and seeing how much Christine loves them. That is so beautiful, this bond, the unconditional love and support. I really feel as though Christine was always the heart of the Brown family, and perhaps she always will be even when she is divorced from Cody. And the kids love Christine. She loves them. The kids are loyal to Christine. You can feel how genuine and authentic the love is with Janelle and Christine and their kids. I would love a show with just Christine and Janelle and the kids, or Christine, Janelle, and Mary and the kids. If they cut out the toxicity that is Cody and Robin and they make a lighter, fun, fluffy show with good vibes all around, and they cut out the car crash and the people who enable the car crash to be a car crash, the show would be so much more fun and light to watch. It is so stressful watching this show now because you see these beautiful women and their sacrifice and their beautiful kids who are intelligent and resilient and emotionally aware and self-aware. And you see the beautiful stuff about this family. You see the good stuff in this family. And then you see Cody behaving horrendously, being a miserable, abusive curmudgeon, shitting on every blessing he has instead of appreciating the beautiful things. And you want to throw shit at your TV or go work out because you can't even believe what an egotistical loser this man is or how toxic his behavior is. It's stressful watching him behave this way. And each season we learn Cody is even lower than we thought was even possible. Cody won the lottery with these women and with these kids. He really did. But he sees them as his obstacles, as if he is blind or has some type of mental impediment. He treats them like they are his enemies, not like they are his family on the same team. And he only sees hate and resentment. And his own pride doesn't allow him to see the good. He may never be capable of seeing it. I think Cody is too narcissistic or too much of a domineering asshole to ever change. He's too far down this path. But then I think Stevie Wonder exists. Stevie is blind. He's a musical genius. He can play piano. He can play anything he wants like nobody's business. If a blind man can vibrate that highly and play music from his soul without sight, if this asshole goes and gets help, maybe he can learn to love his family and drop his ego enough to admit he has some sort of problem and help himself. And his problem isn't his wives and his kids. His problem is him. Cody will probably always be his own worst enemy. And I don't think the guy will change. I don't think it's possible, but a small part of me hopes so for the sake of his kids who don't deserve any of this bullshit. I wonder sometimes, does Cody watch himself on TV? Does he see what he looks like? Does he see that in the end, all he will have left is himself if he continues down this path? Maybe Cody should watch himself on TV. Maybe he should watch how Isabel felt after he wouldn't do what any other man, what any other father would do. This isn't just a bad father level or a bad husband level. It's not a good human level, and it's not a good character level to be able to really say you would not show up at your daughter's surgery. How did he sleep at night knowing his daughter was in an ICU bed and Christine was alone? And I don't give a fuck what state of a relationship their marriage was in. This is about his daughter. Does it matter if they have a good relationship? Should that affect the way he unconditionally loves his child? Is Cody capable of true unconditional love? Will Cody ever be able to drop his ego at the door? I doubt it, but I would love to be wrong in this case. I really would. When most of your kids and 3 of your wives have issues with you, one now an ex-wife, thankfully for her, the issue isn't everyone else around you. The issue is you. And everyone has issues. I have a shit ton. I don't know anybody who doesn't have any issues. It's totally okay to have issues, but it's not okay when you can't figure out your issues and you treat everyone like a dick because you yourself are miserable and you want to spread it around. Is it a big shock that some of Cody's wives and kids prefer not to be around him, not even for holidays? Is it a wonder? Maybe if Cody was a better person, a kinder person with less of an ego and more gratitude and humility for his blessings that he has in his children and in his wives. Maybe if Cody showed appreciation, if he compromised, maybe if he didn't treat everyone like his opponents and less than his equals. Maybe if he didn't treat everyone like his opponents playing a game for him to win or lose, all or nothing, maybe then his kids would want to be around him and his wives too. Has Cody apologized to his wives and kids for his behavior, for not being there as a father and a husband when they needed him the most? Or is Cody too preoccupied with playing the victim himself? Is Cody too tired from carrying around his ego? Is he too constipated with his arrogance? Christine tells Janelle her kids were the same way about Janelle regarding Thanksgiving. Christine told her kids that Janelle was thinking about going to Utah, and her kids said, "Then let's go to Utah." Christine says, Isabel and Gwendolyn are obsessed with Janelle. They think Janelle is the strongest, most independent, courageous woman that they know. And when they found out that Janelle was doing her thing, going off to her sister's house for Thanksgiving, her kids thought, yeah, that's awesome. Janelle is so cool and independent, and they supported Janelle's decision. In confessional, Christine says there is a bit of choosing sides. She says she and Janelle going and doing their own thing for Thanksgiving is really hard on everybody. Christine says the thing is, she can't always please everybody. She can't, and she can't always please all of the adults in the family, but she is going to please her kids. Instead, she is going to do this for her kids. Mary is in the car and she is emanating light with a huge, bright smile. I haven't seen Mary smile like this in years. Like she feels light on the inside, and she hasn't smiled like this in a very long time. And it's good to see whenever we see Mary happy. I think when Mary is happy, she is probably a riot. She's probably very fun. She's sarcastic, she's witty, she can be cynical. She has a good sense of humor. She's probably a lot different than what we see on the show. Mary announces why she is so happy. She is headed to Robin's to see the kids finally. She is excited. She has seen the kids from a distance, but she hasn't yet been able to hug them. Mary says she has been begging Robin and Cody for months and months to be able to go over and see them. And now that everyone knows the protocols, Mary can finally go to Robin's. In confessional, Robin says that she and Mary have been counting down the days to when Mary can come over to her house. Mary had to do something at the inn, and then she quarantined for 10 days to be able to visit Robin's. And Robin hasn't told her kids a thing about Mary coming over, so it'll be a fun surprise for all of them when Mary shows up. Robin explains that they have been very careful throughout the pandemic, as if we still didn't know. The kids haven't been around anybody else except for their family in their household. They are very affectionate, and Robin says it's a big deal being able to hug and touch someone else. It's been hard for Robin's kids, but they have had a good attitude. Mary knocks on the door, and Dayton asks, "Should I let her in?" And another daughter asks, "Why is Mary here? She looks scared." Saul asks, "Can I let her in?" And he is so excited. He asks, "Can I touch her?" And Robin says yes. And Saul is adorable. He runs so fast. He's jumping up and down. He is so happy that he is able to hug Mary. He jets to the door. He's jumping up and down, cheering, "We can touch her! We can touch her!" All the kids line up excitedly to hug Mary. They are crying, and you can tell they haven't seen or touched people in months and months. And it even made me tear up seeing this. I just don't think it's worth it to live the way that they lived and subject their kids to going to that extreme and being that isolated. It's very bad for their mental health. It's bad for them in general. They got COVID anyways from that household, and everyone was fine. Most people live through COVID. And I don't think that the approach Robin and Cody took did anything but traumatize the kids and the family further. And all it did was damage all the family relationships even more than they were already damaged. It's very heartwarming to see how emotional everyone is, though. Mary is glad this is finally happening. Mary says, "It's been a really long time, and it's not normal or natural for a family to be separated like this." Mary has missed hugs from these kids, and she has missed hanging out with them. Ari is adorable. She wants everyone to do a group hug. It's very sweet. And Robin says she can see that Mary is starting to get emotional, and she is trying to not make it a big deal because that's Mary. But Robin can only imagine, after so long of just not being able to be around people, to sit there and just be hugged by a whole bunch of kids that love you, how it feels. Aurora explains that the other night they were watching her mom's home videos from when she was 19 or 20 on the VCR. And there were a couple of them when Robin was breakdancing. Mary didn't know that Robin was a breakdancer. Aurora says Robin was getting down low, as Brianna, how her mom was supposedly dancing. In confessional, Robin says she doesn't know if breakdancing is the right word, but she had a few moves. And she says that proudly, which is so cringe. They show the video of Robin's dancing. I'm just going to put it this way. Mary's banana picture to the catfish was less cringy than Robin's dance video. That's just how I'm going to put it. I would be ashamed and embarrassed to show that on national television if that was me dancing like that, if you can even call that dancing. It looked like spastic jerks, but maybe Robin thinks that she looks good. To each their own, honestly. Ari is adorable. She is super happy that Mary is here. And she has a really, really weird children's mullet haircut, by the way. It's very weird with layered bangs off to the side in the front. I don't know if she tried to cut her own hair herself. That's almost what it looks like. Or if Robin did that. But if Robin did that, Robin did Ari dirty with that haircut for sure. Robin says it was nice to have Mary over. They talked, they played, they hung out, they ate. It was nice. And Robin can tell this will be a regular thing for them from now on. Ari is adorable. She tells Mary it feels like her whole family is together. And Mary says it warms her heart knowing that she is as important to them as they are to her, as she breaks down in tears. I noticed, maybe Cody was there, but they did not show him in the scenes at Robin's house at all. It makes me sad that all that Mary has to feel loved and important are Robin's kids and Robin. I think Mary has a ton of love to give others, and she doesn't feel loved in return as much as she gives out love. She doesn't have a lot of people who show her love, so she gravitates to Robin's kids to feel like she has a family and like she matters. And feeling that love is what keeps her in. I wish Cody could be a little kinder to Mary. I noticed she said it warms her heart that the kids matter to her as much as she matters to them. I think Mary feels like she doesn't matter enough to other people, but she loves the kids because there is no stress. There is no drama with kids. There is just pure love. They love Mary with open arms. They accept her unconditionally. And Mary deserves to be with someone who can give her as much love as she has to give them. I don't think she feels like she matters. She gave up her marriage. She gave up most of her life to this family. She dedicated herself to this family. And I don't think she feels like they see her, especially Cody. And that's sad because even though Mary might have her own way of doing things, and even though Mary has made a lot of mistakes in the past with Janelle and Christine, she has a really big heart and she has a lot of love to give. And I think Mary could find a partner who can love her back the way she loves them unconditionally. I think being with Cody without really being with him as her husband hurts her big time. And I don't think Cody cares. I think he wants to make it as inhospitable as possible for Mary to stay. And he owes Mary more than that, and he should try. And if he can't try and he can't ever let her transgression go, and he wants to continue to twist the knife, he really needs to assess what it is in him that gets off on hurting her. Because Mary doesn't deserve that. I get the catfish. I get that Mary hurt Cody. She hurt his ego. Maybe Cody felt betrayed even though he's the one that abandoned her first and blah, blah, blah. But Cody stopped intimacy with Mary over a decade ago. He treats Mary like the village leper, and still she stays. And she probably knows she will never feel completely fulfilled like this, but she stays when no other woman in the world would. It would be nice if Cody could recognize his part in not being the best husband, in distancing himself from her, and not being intimate with her for over 10 years before her transgression. If Cody could try, if not to love her as a husband, to at least not twist the knife again, I think Mary deserves better from Cody, and I think Cody can do better with her. He doesn't want to be intimate with her. He doesn't want to have a full marriage with her. Fine, but he could do better than what he's doing now. And he could definitely stop shoving the catfish in her face years later. Mary loves Robin, even though Robin is a friend only when it's convenient for her. Mary loves Cody's kids with Robin. She lived her whole life with Cody, building this family from the ground up. She made mistakes. He made big mistakes too. Can't Cody do better than what he is doing now with Mary, even just as being the mother of his child, now adult child? Cody wouldn't have his soulmate if it wasn't for Mary. Cody wouldn't have his family if it wasn't for Mary. Cody wouldn't have been able to marry Robin to adopt her kids, to have that family that he calls the only family that feels like his home. So yes, Mary had an emotional affair. Yeah, she would have probably left Cody if the catfish were her dream man. And she went about it wrong, and she could have seriously put the family in danger, especially trusting the words of an internet stranger when the world knows where they live. It could have been a psycho. Mary is incredibly gullible. She lived a very sheltered life. It was her mistake to conduct herself in that way. I understand her seeking love. I wouldn't understand her trusting internet strangers. She didn't go about it in the best way, perhaps. But whenever I see Cody with a glimmer in his eye, proudly announcing that he and Mary are just friends, even in unnecessary times, just to throw it in Mary's face and twist the knife, I wonder what's wrong with Cody in his heart and mind that he gets off on cruelty. Cody knows by now, years after the catfish incident, that we know by now that Cody and Mary are just acquaintances. We know, we get it, Mary gets it. The only reason Cody says it at all is cruelty, and that just shows his character. But it's not really fair to Mary, and it just makes Cody look like a bully and an asshole who wants revenge because his ego got bruised, when he got revenge already for years. Does he need more to feel better about himself, really, and to fix the dent in his ego? How weak is this guy? How insecure? I'm not a huge Mary fan. There are things about Mary in her past that are very problematic, as far as the way she treated Janelle when Janelle came into the family, and the way she treated Christine. But we also see Mary, I believe she's working very hard to improve herself. And Cody could also cut Mary some slack and be a better human to her in general. He doesn't want to be her husband, fine. He doesn't want to hook up with her, fine. He doesn't want to ever be romantic, fine. Just be a good human to this woman who brought you to Robin, to the family you feel at home with. Can he just try to look at some of the good and just let this go? Next, Robin summons her kids to the living room because she needs to let them know that the whole family won't be all together for Thanksgiving, and that Janelle and Christine have decided to go to Utah to see their own older kids instead. Robin is frustrated by it, and she is sad and hurt by their choice to go see their own kids instead of having a miserable, miserly Thanksgiving with herself, Cody, and Mary and her kids. Who wants to be criticized and shamed for being lax and irresponsible all night long? Who wants to be condescended to like they are children? Who wants to be used as a reason to blame and deflect for the reason that Cody can't be a good, present, invested father and husband with all of his wives and kids? Who wants to walk on eggshells for Thanksgiving? I don't blame Janelle and Christine or their kids for not wanting to attend Thanksgiving at Robin's house after the way Cody has treated them. Why should they go where it will be stress and negativity and doom and gloom? There is no reason for Robin to take this so personally as a personal affront or a personal insult when that isn't at all what this is. And it's very childish and immature for Robin to be hurt or to take this very personally, because grown adults and their kids want to go see their older kids in Utah. Who would pick Cody and Robin and their kids over seeing their own older kids who have moved away to Utah? Especially knowing those older kids would welcome them with open arms and accept and love them as they are. And they wouldn't have to try to jump through hoops or be dictated to about how to live in order to be welcome there. It wasn't personal. It wasn't that Christine and Janelle were rejecting Robin or her kids at all. They preferred to go where they know it will be a good time, where there won't be any toxicity or manipulation, and where they won't have to jump through hoops in order to be welcome. And the bottom line is they wanted to see their older kids. And it's very immature and childish for Robin to perceive it as a personal rejection just because Janelle and Christine and their kids prefer to go be with their blood family and their own kids, and the kids prefer to be with their older siblings for the holidays. If Robin really was cognizant of being sensitive to her kids' feelings, she wouldn't take her false perception of rejection and then deliver it to her kids that way, that Christine and Janelle are rejecting them for Thanksgiving, that it's personal, that they choose not to be with them intentionally, when that's not at all what it is. Christine and Janelle all have older kids who can't go to Robin's house because of the protocols Cody insisted on. So if they want to be with their older kids, They should be, and it's not a rejection of Robin and her kids. They have every right to choose their kids. That's the natural choice, and in my opinion, that's the right choice. If Robin is hurt or frustrated and she wants to take it personally as rejection, that's her choice. But that's not the truth at all. It isn't personal rejection of Robin and her kids. For Christine and Janelle and their kids to choose to be with their siblings and their older kids. Why not? It's the natural choice. Robin is very immature. She needs to grow the fuck up if that hurts her that much. Very emotionally manipulative towards her kids for Robin to frame this as a rejection by Janelle and Christine and their kids of her and her kids. It's not appropriate to frame it that way to the kids, in my opinion, especially when the way Robin is delivering it isn't the actual truth. That's the narrative she created in her mind, and that's how she perceives it, and it's a wrong perception. Yet Robin sits her kids down and she says, that's what the situation is. She says, Dad put together a list of things each household has to do in order for the whole family to get together. And Janelle said her household is unable to follow the rules. Aurora, Mini Robin, asks, they're not able to? Or they're choosing not to? Either way, who cares? Even if they choose not to, no one, not even Cody, has a right to dictate how everyone has to live to be together. And that doesn't mean that they are rejecting Robin and her kids by not being there if they choose not to be dictated to. Robin tells Aurora she doesn't exactly know what is going on. Robin tells her kids that Gabe has a girlfriend and a social life. This is super fucked up of Robin as a wife in this family to sit there and blame Gabe because he has a girlfriend and a life and friends. Who would forego their girlfriend and their social life just so they can have a Thanksgiving as a family at Robin's house, or so Cody can show up and barely phone it in for an hour or two? No one deserves to be dictated to like this. It's bullshit for Robin to bring up Gabe. She is very immature and she acts like more like a child than Gabe. Gabe acts like a mature man. He acts like an adult. And Robin acts almost like a child, and she's like probably in her 50s. That's bullshit. Gabe is in his 20s, and he should live his life while being reasonably safe. It's not appropriate to hold your kids hostage in their house and expect them to completely not have a life. That's more detrimental than having COVID ever would be. I really don't know why Robin is trying to blame Gabe for this, as if he is doing something wrong for even breathing, and it makes her look absolutely ridiculous and immature. This isn't the right way to tell her kids, in my opinion. I would have just said, listen, Janelle and Christine want to visit their older kids for the holidays, so we're going to have our own Thanksgiving here and it'll be great. End of story. There is no further explanation needed. Instead, Robin made it a point to frame it as a personal rejection, that Christine and Janelle and their kids reject them, and that it's personal, when really they just prefer to go see their older kids and the kids want to see their siblings. It's not personal, and there's no reason to frame it in this way at all. And you have to be so thin-skinned and insecure to take this personally. Why does Robin have to manipulate every situation and emotionally manipulate the kids as well, just because she perceives something in the wrong way? This is so weird to me. Robin says that Janelle and her kids are going to Utah for the holidays to have Thanksgiving at her sister's house. Robin says she is worried about how this will make her kids feel. Robin wonders if this will start making them be bitter and stop wanting to be around the family, since the family doesn't care to be around them. Please. If Robin is so sensitive and she's so worried about her kids' feelings and she loves to coddle them, why didn't she just say Janelle and Christine and the kids are going to go to Utah? Janelle's going to go to her sister. Christine is going to her older kids' house. They miss their older kids. They miss their family. They're going to go. Instead, Robin went to great lengths to make this personal, to frame it as a personal rejection, like everyone is rejecting Robin and her kids. She also seemed to want to blame Gabe for some reason and to paint Gabe as the reason why Janelle isn't coming and to paint Gabe as irresponsible. That's very immature and childish and trifling. Gabe is in his 20s. He should have friends. He should have a girlfriend. You can sanitize and wear a mask. You can be careful. You can be reasonable. But he should still live his life. I'd rather let my kid live as long as they are responsible, more or less. And I think that's preferential to holding them hostage in my house for fear of a possibility of an illness that most likely isn't going to kill you. I would really rather they get COVID and get the antibodies and recover from it. Most people don't die from COVID. This is a ridiculous, irrational fear. Robin explains to the kids in a somber tone that Christine has decided to go to Utah to have Thanksgiving at Aspen's house. Aurora, the next mini Robin, says they're the ones that are constantly pushing for the family to get together. And when they finally have common ground on what they need to do, they said screw it. Robin says she didn't want to tell her that's not true because she says there is truth to what Aurora is saying. There is truth to what Aurora is saying in her mind. She doesn't necessarily perceive things in the right way. Robin says in confessional that she isn't going to lie to her. Really? So she draws the line at honesty. But emotional manipulation, totally cool. Okay, no problem. Robin tells Aurora that Christine wants to be able to get together, but she decided she would rather go to Aspen's. Robin says it's very natural for a mom to want to go see her kids who have moved out. She chuckles and she says, but you can't really do that in a plural family. She asks, where is Cody supposed to go? She says, Janelle wants to go to this kid's house. Christine wants to go to this kid's house. Mary wants to go to Leo's house. Robin says, even when her kids are grown and out of the house, it will be the same thing. She says, as a plural family, you have to do things differently. Robin tells the kids that Mary has decided to have Thanksgiving with them, though. Robin is sad that they won't be together for Thanksgiving, but she says she can't dwell on it. She has to rally the troops and keep up the good morale. Aurora starts crying and she says, it would be nice to see everyone and spend time together as a family on Thanksgiving. She has a roof over her head, a nanny, clothes, food, everything she needs. Listen, there are kids in third world countries. There are refugees who don't have a roof, who don't have food, who live in countries that have war. And this girl is crying as if someone died just because two of the sister wives and their kids want to go see their other family, their siblings, their aunts, their older kids. So what? Get over it. Aurora is very emotional. Probably because her mom is also very up and down in hysterics too. And her mom is very fearful and anxious, and kids behave like what they see modeled around them. I was a kid who spent a lot of my childhood in a hospital with metal rods and pins and this and that in my legs. I didn't cry. I honestly, it was like a level 10 pain and I didn't cry. And this girl is crying just because one Thanksgiving some of the family won't be there. It's not that big a deal. The way Robin delivered the news like a rejection made this more traumatic for her kid, who is already very sensitive. And it is emotional manipulation because of how Robin framed it. Now Aurora is in tears. All she had to say is, Janelle and Christine miss their older kids. They can't come here to my house because of the protocols, so they're going to go see them so everyone stays safe, and we'll get together at Christmas. If Robin did that, maybe Aurora wouldn't be in tears. Although this really isn't something to cry over. It's not the end of the world. That's way overly sensitive. What is this girl going to do when she has to deal with real life? There are refugee kids who have seen war, who have lost their parents, who don't cry. But this girl is crying over a couple people not attending one holiday, and it's way over the top. Robin says she doesn't want her kids to feel sad or rejected. If she doesn't want her kids to feel sad and rejected, why did she go out of her way to frame it as a personal rejection? Robin says, although she doesn't want her kids to feel sad and rejected, she doesn't know how they couldn't. Robin says that's how she feels. She says she is trying to be big about it and mature about it. If the way she handled it is her being mature about it, mentioning Gabe and this and that, wow, if she considers what she did mature. It's the most childish thing in the world to feel rejected just because two of the sister wives want to take their kids to do Thanksgiving with their older kids and their other family members. Who cares? More turkey for you, less dishes, less noise, less stress. Smoke a fucking joint, have a glass of wine, chill out. This is not rejection. It's nothing to even think twice about, really. Robin acts like she is about to cry, and she says, this is hard for her too. In confessional, Cody says today is Thanksgiving, and Mary is coming over to Robin's to have Thanksgiving with Robin and their kids. Cody says the weirdest thing is that Christine and Janelle are both in Utah with other family members having Thanksgiving there. He says they chose to do their Thanksgiving other places. And here at Robin's, there are just 8 of them having Thanksgiving. Mary explains that typically for Thanksgiving, she does the turkey because she's good at it, Christine does the rolls, and Janelle usually brings a couple of pies. Robin brings the relish trays. So they all have different things that they bring. Robin called Mary, we learn, and she was nervous. She said she thought it would be a touchy subject, but she wanted to try making a turkey. Mary told Robin that she was great with that, but it was weird for Mary. She wondered, how do I do Thanksgiving without making a turkey? Mary didn't know what to do with herself. So she still made a turkey out of Rice Krispies treats. Mary brings her tinfoil wrapped Rice Krispie treat turkey and she teases Robin. She tells Robin she might be mad with her. In confessional, Cody says he doesn't know what kind of sister wife thing might have gone on. He doesn't know if there was a little rub. Cody says Robin is wide-eyed over this, but he knows Robin, he knows her personality, and he thinks Robin will just roll with it. But she is wide-eyed. Mary tells Robin she had to bring a turkey. One thing that I noticed in this scene is Ari is about to turn 5. This is right before Ari turns 5 and has the birthday party, which was actually the point of exposure to COVID for the family. And so here she is 4.5, almost 5, with a pacifier in her mouth. Maybe it's a comfort thing. Maybe it's normal. I'm no expert on this stuff, I have to admit. But is almost 5 a little old to be having a pacifier? Robin tells Mary okay to her saying she had to bring a turkey. She's surprised, but she says she is easy about it as Mary lifts up the foil to reveal her Rice Krispie treat turkey. Mary says Cody loves her Rice Krispies treats, so Mary thought she needed to make a Rice Krispie treat turkey, and that's what she did. Robin says it's cute that Mary was teasing her. Cody seems very pleased by it. He's all smiles in confessional. It's the first time that he's smiled genuinely, maybe all season. Cody says it's quiet here. He says if Mary would have done this with the whole family there, it would have been the noisiest thing. Everybody would have been loud about it. Cody says they have had lots of crazy Thanksgivings. One year in Vegas, they had a lot of extended family and they had 79 or 80 people at that Thanksgiving. Cody says it filled the entire room with people and tables. Cody seems to like a lot of people there around him, and he seems to really lament having a smaller Thanksgiving. Cody says it's quiet at Robin's, it's peaceful. Cody says it's great having Mary around. They don't have a strained relationship. They just don't have a full marriage. Yes, remind us again. Remind Mary again that you aren't in a full marriage. Maybe she didn't get the message the first 20,000 times. What a dick. Seriously, we get it. And they don't have a strained relationship, but he sure does love to twist the knife as revenge every chance he gets because Mary's emotional affair dented his ego big time. But it's not strained. Everything is wonderful. Sprinkles and rainbows. Nothing strained. Cody says through this entire process of what happened with the catfishing to where they are now, he is trying to just have a good, amicable relationship with Mary. Cody reassures us, in case we're wondering, it's no more than that. Again, he says, it's not a marriage. Just in case anyone cares, Cody and Mary no longer bang. They're no longer intimate, just in case we had any doubts, because Cody hasn't ever told us that before. Remember when this fool was in the car with Mary and he told a reporter who called that he and Mary were no longer intimate, just out of the blue for no reason randomly, other than for Mary to hear him say it just to hurt her? Mary is helping Robin cook, and she says she feels comfortable with Robin in her kitchen. Robin says that she and Mary work well in the kitchen together. Robin doesn't know how it would be if they lived together and shared a kitchen, but when they work together for holidays, they work really well together. In confessional, Cody says he would never again, for the rest of his life, ever want to have his wives sharing a kitchen. Cody says from what he has seen, there's a tendency to be vying for power or position, or relinquishing power and position to get along. So out of knowing women's nature, personally, Cody doesn't give a damn what polygamists believe about what you should do with wives to make them grow and become celestial. He never wants to see his wives sharing a kitchen ever. Cody always contradicts himself because during the Christmas episode, he said he loved to see his wives knocking hips in the kitchen. Cody says some interesting things here. First of all, obviously Cody doesn't understand women's nature, even though he's had 4 wives in his life, because look at how he behaves. Look at how he treats his wives. If he understood them, he wouldn't behave the way he does. He says there is a tendency to be vying for power or position, or relinquishing power and position for his wives to get along. I thought many times the wives in Cody have said there is no hierarchy. And we know Christine said in earlier episodes that she felt like the basement wife, the lowest on the totem pole, in other words. Here, Cody admits there is a hierarchy and it's a power struggle, and that his wives vie for position and power in the family and with him to have status with him. He understands that they all want to be on top of the pyramid. They all want to be the favorite wife. And that struggle affects the friendships. That struggle affects the relationships, where one wife will give another wife a voice or take it away. If it's manipulation or a power exchange and it's all about finding a balance to get along, why does Cody have a blatant wife? Why is he so obvious about it? I think Cody loves seeing the women struggle for their position. He enjoys leveraging things here and there and manipulating things. Cody enjoyed knowing that the wives' whole world used to center around him. So he could manipulate one wife to do something he wanted to gain favor with him during good times in their relationship with him. And he could distance from a wife he struggled with. And Cody does stuff to exacerbate that power struggle among the wives. He loves it. It feeds his ego. He loves picking a favorite wife and showcasing her as the shining example for all the other wives to see. See, for Cody, this is all about power. This is all about ego. Cody is vying for power. He is coping with the notion that he is no longer at the center of each wife's world. They don't need or want the crumbs that he has to give. They don't need Cody. They don't need his attention to feel good. He is no longer everything to his wives or to his kids. They don't need Cody to feel good. He is no longer the center of all of his wives' worlds, and it drives him mad. See, to Cody, this is all about power. He wants to be the leader. He wants to be the head of every house, or he wants nothing to do with it. And his family became his obstacles in life because Cody sees everything like a game to win or lose. And because Cody tries to manipulate and use the needs of his wives and kids to try and leverage them to behave as he wants, because Cody views everyone as his opponents, Cody sees everything like a game to win or lose. And Cody assumes his wives see everything that way too when they don't. Christine, for example, is cognizant of the game. Cody doesn't make her world spin anymore. She realizes she doesn't need him. She is no longer playing the game. She doesn't care if Cody comes around or not, if it means she's going to be dictated to and controlled on how to live without her voice mattering and being heard. Janelle also is no longer playing the game. And to Christine and Janelle and Mary and the kids, the family isn't a game, it's a family. Cody isn't their opponent or their enemy, but Cody, in his sick mind, perceives everything that way when that's not the same operating system the family even goes by. Cody is operating on Windows 7, and Christine and Janelle and the kids are operating on Windows 11. Maybe they are using MacBooks. They aren't playing his game. They aren't operating from the same systems or the same mindset as Cody is. Them, this isn't a game. It's not about leveraging this or that to gain power. It's not about them having power. It's not about punishing someone or forcing them into submission. It's not about us versus them. To Cody's wives and kids, this is their family. They are all Team Brown. They are Team Brown all the way. And if Cody continues to operate under his warped system and his warped mindset with his skewed perception of things, if Cody continues to treat this like he is playing a game, he is the only one who will lose. He is the only one who is playing. What's the point of being king of your own castle if it's empty and just you and 3 or 4 of your psycho fans are left and they aren't telling you the truth? They are just licking the king's ass, blowing hot air just to manage the king out of fear that he will get triggered. Cody also says he doesn't give a damn what polygamists believe about what you should do with wives to make them grow and become celestial. Cody claimed in one of the last episodes that his wives and kids have just thrown religion out the window, blaming them for it. But if Cody is supposedly the head of the family and he's living polygamy to abide by his faith, and that's why everyone signed up for this, isn't it up to Cody to follow his own faith? Isn't it up to Cody to live polygamy and execute polygamy as the husband the way the faith demands it to be lived? But Cody doesn't seem to give a damn about the faith or about how the faith prescribes polygamy should be lived. Cody is the one who dropped the faith first. Cody is the one who stopped giving fair and equal time and treatment to all of his wives and kids. He is the one who blatantly chooses a favorite wife, who props her up like the example of obedience for the other wives to see. Cody is the one who calls his family an obstacle to his goals in life. When he started this family, he made the choice to live polygamy based on the faith. And long ago, he threw the way to live polygamy as the husband under the faith out the window. I don't believe polygamy is a healthy lifestyle choice. But of course, I believe live and let live. And I do believe there is a much healthier, less toxic way to live polygamy if you really wanted to. According to the faith, each wife should be treated the same. She should get the same time from the husband, the same finances, the same level of investment, and on and on. Cody should be giving everyone the same thing across the board. Cody wants to blame his wives for tossing the faith out the window, but Cody lived polygamy, and he chose to structure his family this way based on the faith. He got his wives to sign up for this based on the faith. His wives didn't throw religion out the window. In my opinion, Cody did that when he stopped prioritizing the family over himself, when he prioritized his individual marriage with Robin above the family, and when he stopped giving fair and equal time and investment to all of his wives and kids. When Cody created one standard for the favorite wife and her family and another for the rest of the family, Cody threw religion out the window. So Cody threw the religion out first, probably because the way polygamy is supposed to be lived per the faith would be a huge inconvenience for him, and he isn't capable of that sacrifice. Cody wants to blame his wives for tossing out the religion, but who tossed it out first? The goal of the faith is the team over the self and overcoming the human emotional struggles to become your best self. The goal is supposed to be harmonious familial love and group harmony. The team over the self. The family over the individual. The family and the team over the individual marriages. But Cody lost sight of the plot years ago. Cody signed up for this. He signed up to execute the lifestyle according to the faith. He married 4 women and he has to take accountability and own his choice and live up to what he signed up for and why he signed up for it. After he fails year after year to live up to his end of the agreement, after he can't even do the basics of being fair and equal to everyone, he doesn't get to deflect and blame his wives and kids for his behavior. He doesn't get to be toxic and emotionally abusive and manipulative to try and get his way. He doesn't get to blame them for his behavior when for those 4 women, they have dedicated years of their lives to Cody, especially the original 3 of them. They've dedicated their whole lives to Cody when he can't even do the basics under the faith, which is supposedly the reason they all live this way. Christine is at Aspen's house in Utah with Mykelti and her other kids. Originally, Christine and Janelle were doing Thanksgiving together, but it didn't work out. They felt like it was way too much COVID risk. They wanted to do the responsible thing. I understand they were being responsible, but I wonder why they didn't get together, because Janelle and Christine and their kids all got together regularly in Flagstaff. Mykelti is 4.5 months pregnant and she is showing. Christine thinks it's so cute. Christine says Isabel has a very special relationship with everybody here at their Thanksgiving. The surgery was a couple of months ago, but Isabel, unfortunately, is still in a crazy amount of pain. She doesn't feel good. She's uncomfortable sitting, and it's really difficult. And through it all, Isabel is being very sweet and loving, Christine says. She says she and the kids are having fun at Aspen and Mitch's, and it's so relaxing and wonderful. She says she could definitely get used to this, but she isn't saying anything. Christine thinks part of the reason it's so nice and pleasant and easy is because it's been super stressful at home. Christine says things are hard at home, so she thinks part of the reason why this Thanksgiving is so nice is because she can leave all the problems and all the stress behind, and she can just have it be easy. Christine says the relationship that she has with her kids is the most important relationship that she has. She's grateful that she was able to see her kids this year, and she is glad she didn't let COVID control her life. Janelle is having Thanksgiving at her sister's house in Utah. It's the first Thanksgiving that she has had in years without the whole family there. The kids are all smiles. It's their first Thanksgiving without the family. Gabe and Garrison are smiling wide. Garrison says it's never been like this. And Gabe chuckles and he says, "Stupid COVID." Janelle says the reality was she didn't even think to call Cody or anybody because she was having such a great time with her family. They were busy. They were doing all the fun things that are in Utah to do for the holidays. Christine says they video chatted Robin's house for Thanksgiving. Back at Robin's, they're trying to get a picture of Ari smiling. So Cody asks her to please sit with Mary and give a sweet smile because it's special for Mommy and I. It's amazing how delicate he is with Ari, but look how he treated Isabel. Why can't Cody be this way with all of his kids? Robin says it's just she and Cody and the kids and Mary. It's small and quiet, and she says there is simplicity to this, but it's a marked difference, and it's definitely a prick to her heart that not everybody is there. Mary says she is most grateful that she gets to be with all of them for Thanksgiving. Mary feels sad that Janelle and Christine didn't find it important enough to spend Thanksgiving with this part of the family. How could Janelle attend if her sons were not welcome? Why would she abandon them to go to Robin's? Why should Christine miss out on seeing Mykelti and Aspen and Peyton and Mitch and Tony, who would not be welcome at Robin's house either, per the COVID protocols? Mary says she could have chosen to go to Thanksgiving with her mom or with Leo, but she says just because she chose this family, it doesn't mean that her mom or Leo are any less important. But this is where she wants to be, and this is where she needs to be for such an important family holiday. Cody says he feels like he is surrounded by beauty and the beauty of the people there around him sitting at the table. He says in confessional that COVID has been such a strain on the family and that everybody at the table has been easy on him about his rules for COVID. And the contrast has been one of those things that has really just made him aware of those who are loyal to him and those who are not. Cody says he supposes it's as much respect as it is loyalty. Cody says how you love a man is to respect him. How you love a man is to respect him. And so he is sitting here just appreciating where he is at and who is with him. For the love of God, this man's ego and arrogance just won't quit. This has nothing to do with loyalty or respect at all. This is about Cody wanting control, being power hungry, having a huge ego, and not accepting that his wives and kids don't blindly think the sun shines out of his ass. If you love someone and you see them making mistakes that cause damage and you tell them, I love you, but this is wrong, I can't back this, I don't sign off on this, it is not disrespect or disloyalty. It's being a good friend, being genuine, being real. It's constructive criticism. It has nothing to do with loyalty and respect. In fact, one might argue that's true loyalty and respect because you aren't blindly obeying someone, blowing smoke, being disingenuous with them, going along with something you don't believe in that you can see is wrong. You are loyal, telling the person that you love, I respect you, I am loyal, I'm having your back. By not being a yes man, you are actually being real and you are being more loyal. By telling the person, listen, you're fucking up and because I love you, I don't want to watch you crash and burn. True respect, true loyalty is being honest and real through the good times and bad and being supportive even if you disagree, through constructive criticism, through being honest with your feelings. True loyalty and respect isn't fake bullshit. Loyalty and respect isn't blind obedience and submissiveness. Even when you disagree and you know it's wrong, if you cannot be real with the person and let them know out of fear that they're going to cast you off or threaten that they're not going to be around, then that's not a real relationship. That's a two-way street with respect and loyalty. And obedience and submission are not loyalty and respect or love. Loyalty means having a person's back, telling them they are wrong when they're wrong, and not just being a yes man. All Cody can see is he wants the family to place faith in him and let him lead. But the more Cody manipulates and distances, and the more he tries to modify his behavior with his abusive ways and toxic manipulations, the less faith and respect and what he perceives as loyalty he will get from his family, because no one can respect a man who is wrapped up in their ego with no self-awareness at all, who resorts to manipulation and distancing to try and garner power or leadership or respect. The more of a power trip the person is on, the less respect and faith a person will have in them, until there will be no ability to even take that person seriously at all. That person becomes a joke. So Cody, treating his family like they're on a different team, like they are his opponents if they don't blindly obey him, is only going to get Cody to be the family's laughingstock, the one everyone whispers about behind closed doors, wondering if they've actually gotten help yet. Cody says that the people with him surrounding his Thanksgiving table have been easy about him about his COVID rules. They blindly obeyed him. They were convenient for him. They easily allowed his control. And the contrast to the rest of the family and how they were disobedient, how they were difficult, how they were resistant to Cody, how they questioned him, that shows the contrast, the distinction between those who are loyal to him and respectful of him and those who are not. Cody is aware the ones with him are loyal. The rest aren't. Just because you disagree with a person and a person's way of doing things and you do things your own way, it does not mean you aren't loyal or respectful of that person. Cody came in, he insisted on all or nothing. He was very rigid and domineering like a dictator, demanding my way or the highway, my way or you won't see me, to try and force everyone's hand into doing things his way. I think that Cody expected if he leveraged himself, if he said, I won't be around if you don't do things my way, that everyone would just bend at the knee. The wives wanted to compromise. They were willing to find a middle ground. Cody was unwilling. It was my way or nothing. You will be dictated to. I will tell you how to live. You will obey me. My voice will be the only voice heard, or I will disengage completely. Cody miscalculated. Cody put himself in a corner with his rigidity and his all or nothing attitude when he could have compromised. And now Cody's pride and ego are forcing him to stick with this, to die on this hill. If anything, I would say anyone who blindly obeys someone for fear of the consequence just because they want him around, and him saying he will completely disengage if they don't do exactly as he says, that's control, that's abuse, that's toxic, that's dictating how people will live. And if they refuse or they want to compromise, all of a sudden they are disloyal, they are disrespectful, when that's not the case. If anything, Janelle and Christine and the kids are more loyal to Cody because they are being real with him. They are telling him they won't be dictated to. They love Cody. They won't bend the knee if they see him doing something wrong. That's true loyalty and respect. True loyalty and respect isn't blind obedience. Blind obedience is submission. The people who submit to Cody aren't doing it because they believe in him or because they think he's right. They're doing it because they would rather have him around than not. They are taking his control just to have his presence, to assuage him, not because they actually believe in what he's doing. Robin does it for her kids to have him around. Mary does it because she is desperate, more or less. It's not out of respect and loyalty. And true respect and loyalty is being real. Cody doesn't respect his whole family. He isn't loyal to them at all, but he expects them to be respectful and loyal to him. What he calls respect and loyalty, by the way, aren't respect and loyalty. What Cody calls respect and loyalty are submission and obedience. Cody wasn't even willing to compromise. His ego got hurt that there were people who weren't willing to play the game. They called his bluff. They said, don't come around, fuck off. I don't think Cody was expecting that because he still thought that all of his wives' lives and all of his kids' lives orbited around him when that ended years ago. Cody wants to talk about loyalty and about respect, but maybe he should give some loyalty and respect to his wives and kids, the people he views as his obstacles to his goals in life. These are the people who truly have his back because they are willing to be real with him. They are willing to be honest with him. They are willing to compromise for him. But Cody isn't willing to do the same for him. Cody doesn't want true, genuine loyalty and respect. Cody wants submission and obedience. And if he wants to be surrounded by yes men who don't really respect him, who don't really have faith in him as he goes through his crisis, who just want to walk on eggshells in order to pacify him, they want to humor him to keep him at bay, that's fine, but they aren't really respecting him and they aren't being truly loyal. All they are doing is humoring him the way a mother humors a toddler to avoid him having a fit. Cody says it's as much respect as it is loyalty, he supposes. Cody says how you love a man is to respect him. How you love a man isn't respect. You love a man by loving him unconditionally. You respect him, of course. You compromise. And if you truly love a man, when he falters, you tell him. And if you see him doing stuff you don't agree with, the last thing you do is blow smoke and blindly obey. You tell him how you feel. You have a willingness to compromise. If he has a willingness too. But Cody doesn't compromise. It's all or nothing. And what Cody calls respect is actually allowing him to dictate to you how things will be. It's submission. It's obedience. It's not actual respect and loyalty that Cody wants. And by the way, who the fuck can respect a man who refuses to attend his daughter's major surgery, who can't compromise, who can't treat his wives as equals, who can't love all his kids unconditionally? He can't do the basics any decent human being would do, and he can't do the basics as a husband and a father, and he wants to talk about respect. How you love a man is much more than just respect. And Cody definitely doesn't respect his wives or treat them as equals. And it's definitely not Cody's definition of respect. That just shows that Cody is not capable of unconditional love. If Cody defines love as respect, and what he means by respect is obedience, it shows that Cody operates off of ego. It shows how insecure and beta he is if he sees respect as blind obedience, as being submissive to him, submitting to him as the leader. If he calls that definition of respect how he should be loved, basically he means prop up my ego, yes me to death, obey me blindly. That's how I will feel you love me, and that's so warped. That's not unconditional love. Cody doesn't unconditionally love. And if his version of being loved is respect, and his version of loyalty is obedience, he doesn't know what love is. If Cody did, he would have been at Isabel's surgery. Again, Cody is demanding loyalty and respect. But does Cody give it? Does Cody respect all of his wives if he wants to command them and have them submit to him with no respect or consideration to their opinions, with absolute rigidity and no compromise? Who died and made this pathetic beta a king? And so Cody says he is just sitting here appreciating where he is at and who is with him. Janelle shows herself, Savannah, Gabe, and Garrison having Thanksgiving alone with their other family. Janelle says there is all this discussion about loyalty and respect, and she thought in a marriage that was mutual. She thought you were supposed to give it both ways, not just that all of the respect and all of the loyalty flows to one person. Janelle says this isn't choosing to not be with Cody, Mary, and Robin's kids. She says they will not ever be compliant enough for their rules. Janelle assesses the situation perfectly, and I appreciate how candid she is. If Cody wanted submissive women with less than 2 brain cells in their head, he picked the wrong ones to marry. Janelle and Christine aren't women who would allow this bullshit, especially to this level. Christine left, and I hope Janelle is next out the door. These women sacrificed a lot to live this way, to marry this douche canoe. They spent most of their lives with him and gave him beautiful, intelligent, mature kids. And Cody doesn't respect them. He wants to call them obstacles with no appreciation for all that they sacrifice, and Mary as well. Christine says Thanksgiving at Aspen and Mitch's house was lovely. It was cozy and no drama. It was great. Cody does a toast to their family, to the corona apocalypse, which he says has made them appreciate family more, as he whines and bitches like a child that his family are obstacles to his goals in life. Does that sound like an appreciative man? What about how he is so jealous and threatened by his successful sons? So threatened that he wishes he was on the lease in order to be able to evict them legally. What about Isabel's surgery? Does Cody act like a man who appreciates his family? Does Cody act in line with the words that come out of his mouth? Cody doesn't appreciate his family. Cody isn't Team Brown. Cody only appreciates the ones who blindly submit and obey, who allow him to be a dictator. Anyone else who doesn't allow that is an obstacle. The only thing Cody appreciates is his own overinflated ego and the people who yes him to death in order to prop it up. Cody says it's very peaceful, it's quiet and easy, but he isn't saying that that's what he wants. Cody says if you want an easy life, be a monogamist. So when Cody calls his family obstacles to his goals in life, maybe his goal is monogamy. Maybe he wants the easy way. Maybe he wants to surround himself with yes men who prop up his ego all day long as he progressively loses his mind, in my opinion. That does it for this episode. To my YouTube viewers, please like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments section if you like. I'll be back this week for the season 17 premiere of Sister Wives. It's over. I am so excited to see how Cody will pathetically play the victim as his wives live their best lives. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.